Start. It is 6 p.m. on October 22nd, and we are calling the meeting to order. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Lisa Jensen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's go ahead and do our roll call starting on my left.
Matt Wheelwright, no conflicts.
Joel Temple, no conflicts.
Lisa Jensen, no conflicts.
Melissa Kendall, no conflicts.
Ann Allen, no conflicts.
Don Lyons, no conflicts.
And Jonathan Hill, no conflicts. As we begin our meeting, I'll read a statement on decorum. Although this is a public hearing, only the presenters and those invited by the commission may speak or ask questions, unless otherwise invited by the chair. Please wait to speak until called on. When speaking, be sure to speak into the microphone so that the record is clear. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Please limit side conversations as they interfere with the audio recording. If you need to have a conversation, please step out of the chambers. Please do not attempt to interrupt or speak over others. Intimidating or threatening speech or behavior will not be tolerated at any time. Please refrain from clapping, cheering, booing, or being otherwise disruptive during the hearing. With that, we'll go ahead to our first agenda item. The Provo City Council requests Ordinance Text Amendments to Chapter 14.30 to replace the map in 14.30.20 and remove 14.30.40. This is a citywide application, and Nancy Robinson will be presenting it for us.
Hello, and mainly I'm just going to be introducing Malia so she can go over it. But this, the key issues for this is just to expand the borders of the map to make it less confusing, remove some of the zoning labels on the map and remove the map title, and then also repealing the 14.30.040, the special use permit. And staff recommendation is that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the proposed text amendments to the Provo City Council. I'll let Malia do the rest.
Excellent, thank you.
Hi, welcome. Well, I guess welcome to me. Sandy, is this? Sorry, I don't know how to. Perfect. Like Nancy said, my name is Malia. I'm policy analyst for the council. I know some of you, but not all of you. This is an ordinance text amendment. We're doing two amendments to the same chapter of code, which is 1430, which is the accessory dwelling units section of our code. So the first one, this one, as it says in the staff report, is just a visual amendment. We noticed as we were getting ADU applications to be added to the map through the ordinance text amendment process that some of the parcels and properties that we're asking to be added weren't visible on the map. And this original map was kind of, the boundaries were arbitrarily drawn just to show. I can give the whole history on the map if you want, but this map was just, the borders were just kind of picked and added. So we're just expanding them. So that way, as more applications come in from other areas of the city, they can be added to the map. We also removed the title because people who are not in R16 and R18 areas can also apply to get an ADU. So we removed the labels in the title just to remove any confusion, because there had been some notes of confusion from applicants and residents about that. So that's all this is. It's not a policy change. We're just kind of trying to simplify our section of code for ADUs. So before I move on to the next one, which is the more substantive policy change, are there any questions regarding this?
Yeah, questions, Lisa?
Since they're permitted outright on the west side, why don't you have that whole area shaded as well?
Great question. So if you look at 1430.020, the clause right before this, so C of 1430.020 talks about areas designated, lists a bunch of zones, including such areas with the performance development overlay are not allowed are prohibited except as shown in the map below. So, but then if you go below the map again, I know the section of code is a little convoluted. In 3 of 020, it says notwithstanding subsection 2, aka the map, they're also allowed west of I-15. So we did consider briefly just shading in things on the map for the west, but then it kind of is confusing when you read section 3 of this 020. So it is a very confusing section of code. We are aware, and we're constantly trying to figure out ways to not have the map in there, but we can't think of a way to do that right now, other than just listing parcels in code, which is something we have considered.
Yeah, just to follow up, because that was a question I had as well. It's also not showing pro zones, R2 zones, et cetera, right? It's kind of a limited
Yeah.
subset of where it's
Yes.
approved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just as feedback to the council, that's still a little confusing to me. I guess just a master map of like, you can do it here and you can't do it here, I think would be clearest for applicants if we want to just do that, right? Just bite the bullet and mark everywhere it's allowed.
Yeah, and that's something the council has discussed. We just don't have a majority motion to go forward with that. But
Okay.
that has been an idea.
What about the separate utilities and the renewal every year? That's part of this, right? Are those changes?
For what
The
section are you
ADUs,
referring
I'm-
to?
I'm down in, oh gosh, guys, what page is this? I'm on page 10. Paying up, okay. At the top, containing ADU must have its own separate meter. Each meter shall be in a property owner's name. Number 7, the ADU shall have its own address.
Oh, yeah, in 030 of 1430. Yeah, so those are the design standards and qualifications for someone for their property to qualify to have an ADU. None of that is changing. There's no amendments to that section at this time.
But I didn't realize ADUs had to have separate meters and had to have their own address.
They
that
do
they-
have to have their own address. As far as meters, that's going to be a question for development services. I don't feel comfortable speaking to that right now.
Or the renewal once a year.
They do have to renew their license once a year, just as any other rental
Oh, I
dwelling
see, I
license.
see.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, you only have to have your own meter if you're detached. The other one is an option to not have your own meter, so.
Yeah, that is good note. So in our code, we treat internal and external ADUs, so attached, detached, how you want to word that, as the same, besides the meters. But as far as where they're allowed, they're the same.
Any other questions on the map specifically? Yeah, Matthew.
I think I'm in favor of what you're proposing, right? It does help a little bit. It's in the right direction, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, we're just going to keep talking about little bits of it. It would be really nice to make some wholesale changes to solve some of it or improve and not be back every time. But I understand what you're doing. I commend you. It's a lot of work. It's complicated. It's political, but so good job on this step. And hopefully there's some big steps, not a bunch of little steps in our future.
So I have one question. Will this new map have a title at all?
No. No title. As of right now. But yeah, we're not recommending a title for it. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to move to the next amendment, which I said does represent a policy change. This is repealing all of 1430-040, which I'll just refer to as 040, which is the special use permit process for ADUs. So in the staff report, I kind of outlined a brief history and timeline of this section of code. So this is half of what it originally used to be, and now we're repealing all of it. But originally in November of 2022, this section was enacted with two, what we refer to as the pathways to get an ADU. One was an administrative path, one was a legislative. The administrative path, both paths included gathering signatures from immediate properties, immediate adjacent residential properties, which we defined in code. The ADU pathway ended in a special use permit for that property owner to maintain an ADU and have an ADU as on their property as long as they also qualified for a license. The second path, which is what we're proposing to repeal tonight, is the legislative path, which is where you would get your signatures, which would then equate to a fee reduction, a fee waiver for your ordinance text amendment to be added to the map that we just discussed in order to have an ADU on your property. And that was a land use decision and was permanent with the property in that parcel, not the property owner. So both required signatures, but one ended in a more temporary special use permit administrative, which we repealed in December of 2024. And then this is the legislative that the council chose to keep, which was then the permanent parcel allowance. But we're repealing that, proposing to repeal that as well. This came about because as the council received ADU applications this year since repealing the administrative path, more people went through the legislative path to get signatures for the fee reduction. It just, the council heard a lot from neighbors, both from the neighborhood program, but also individual residents, that it caused a lot of contention and just fighting within neighborhoods, and the council didn't want to create any more of that through a processing code. So while getting rid of this section 040, people can still go through the process to get an ordinance text amendment to be added to the map. That is not being taken away. All that is being taken away through this repealing is the fee waiver that you would get by getting signatures. So that's this amendment.
Okay, so would they be required to get signatures in the future, or that's
No,
gone?
that is gone.
Joel?
So what process does remain in place for?
Yeah, so what remains in place, which is a process that was always there, but a lot of people weren't taking it because they could get a fee waiver by doing this. What remains in place is like any other ordinance text amendment that someone wants to apply for. So to get an ADU now, you could apply for, there's two ways. You could apply for a rezone to be allowed to rezone your property to one of the zones that are allowed to have an ADU, which is found in 020 of the section. Or you can go through an ordinance text amendment process to be added to the map and then be one of the parcels that has a permitted ADU.
Is there a section that is clearly stated? Because I didn't feel like I saw it within what's here.
There's no section that clearly states the ways in which you can get an ADU, but just like other permitted uses for property, sometimes people will rezone their property because they want a certain use for it. So it's the same as all of the, like any other rezone or ordinance text amendment. It's just not spelled out in this section. But if someone came into development services and said, I want an ADU, they could lay out the process for that.
I just feel like if it's a tool we want people to use, and the council has said this is their tool they want people to use, to one of the tools they want people to use to encourage home ownership and more affordable housing, supposedly. We want it to be obvious and we want it to be easy. And that's the other part of the signature gathering process that I think we saw a lot of animosity about, was that it wasn't easy. And there's more people doing it illegally than doing it legally. So if we want them to comply and get licenses and, rental dwelling licenses and ADU licenses and whatever, that I feel like this still seems convoluted. Like, the map doesn't really help me. The language doesn't tell me the process. I have to go in and ask for help. So that's not going to keep me from voting against it. Like Matt said, it just doesn't seem to really solve the bigger problem, which is that people aren't following the process because it's complicated, and people aren't following the process because it's easier to just pay the fine if they ever get caught and move along and do it again. So that's my concern, is that it doesn't make it easier to come into compliance. It just makes it so you don't have to fight with your neighbors with their signature. They'll come fight in the meeting instead. But anyway, that's just some feedback to pass along when it moves forward.
Okay, Joel?
Can I ask what the fee was for the special use permit versus the ordinance text amendment?
I'm gonna turn that to development services, so they would know better than, I don't
Just
know
curious
what
if we're
the fee would
taking
be.
away like a fairly affordable route and now it's like a several $100 text amendment.
If I remember correctly, the special use permit was $500, and that's the one that was repealed in December. For doing any text amendment, it's $1,100 plus $60 for noticing fees. So just a little over $1,100 for text amendment.
Yeah, thanks.
And the fee waiver for getting the signatures that was in here, how much was that? Was it 100% fee waiver or
Yeah.
partial? 100%.
Yeah, this removed that entire $1,160.
So there was a strong incentive to follow this route. Okay,
Correct.
thanks. Melissa?
Can I ask, and did the city council feel that there was any need to go back to the special use permit that was repealed after watching this process? Or
No.
are they comfortable with just make this a permanent ordinance text route?
Yeah, they're
And it's a
comfortable doing
permanent use
this.
on the map?
I don't want to speak for the whole council, but repealing this makes ADUs a land use decision, just like any other land use decision, in which that people have to apply for a rezone or ordinance text amendment like they would for other rezones or text amendments. So
But
that's why.
it would be permanent on the
Yes,
map.
yes.
So there wasn't any appetite for considering not making it permanent and going back to special use that you know of?
No.
Any other questions for staff here?
I just have, okay,
Yeah.
so I just am trying to make this clear for myself. I hope I'm not making this redundant for others. We have a map where ADUs are permitted,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Okay. And in anywhere where they're not permitted, so I will make somewhere up, northeast, whatever, they're not permitted there.
Okay,
The
yes.
Oak Hills neighborhood. If I want an ADU and I live in the Oak Hills neighborhood or the Tree Streets, what do I have to do?
You can, there's two options, apply for a rezone. So there are zones in City Code 020 where ADUs are allowed. So you can try and rezone your property to that zone.
So I go to Development Services and say, I want to rezone just my house so that I can have an ADU. And then
Yes.
what happens?
And then you go through the rezone process. So that would include submitting an application, getting it reviewed, coming to Planning Commission, coming to City Council. If you don't want to do a rezone, you can do an ordinance text amendment, which practically still gets you an ADU, but your property remains the same primary zone. But now you're allowed to have an ADU permitted as well.
What would cause me to get a denial for that ADU if I went through Route 1, which I wanted
Through
to
the rezone
Yeah,
process?
sure. I go in and I say, hey, I want an ADU. What do you guys say to me?
I mean, it could be a number of things. I mean, each land use application is reviewed individually, so I don't know the specific reasons why or why not that would be denied or accepted.
I mean, at that point, it becomes just like someone wants to take their A1 zone and build a subdivision on it. So they come through the process to rezone it to R1. It's the exact same process now.
So sort
It's
of
no
at the
different.
leisure of the council kind of
There's a
thing?
lot of leeway on the decision-making process
Like-
because it's legislative.
And the council would deny if the neighbors didn't want it.
That's up to the council. They get to make their own decisions on whether they think it's a good idea or not. It'll come through us. We'll make a recommendation just like we do for other zone changes.
Just a lot
So-
more legislative process, basically, is what we're doing. We're
Yep.
putting up a bigger fence to jump over.
In many ways, yes, but I think what it's doing is it's taking away the special treatment. It's making it just like any other change that someone might make. If they want to split their house into a duplex, they have to change it from R1 to R2. It's the same process. now.
Okay. Thanks.
So Matthew?
So I think I understand the value of removing what we're intending to talk about. My question is, so why still have two ways of doing this?
It's not so much that the council is trying to allow two other ways to do this. It's that we can't legally take those methods away.
Okay.
Any property owner can apply for code amendment if they want to do something that's not allowed, or a zone change to a zone that would allow what they want to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
And the code amendment still goes through the same process, doesn't it, as a
Yeah.
rezone? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, thank you so much.
of course.
We'll go ahead and open this meeting for the public comment portion. When each of you may come up and make a comment. When your time is up, you'll hear a ding and the microphone will be muted. Each person may make one comment. If you have any questions, we'll invite you to come back up at the end and ask you questions. This time is for comments only. If you have questions about an item, please seek out some of the staff members that you've seen here and ask them privately. Are there any neighborhood chairs present tonight? Okay, so we'll open it to the general public. Each of you will have 2 minutes to comment. Okay, not seeing any. We'll go ahead and close public comments and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Lisa?
I have a question for Miss Kendall. One of the things I loved about what you said was the conversation we had on one of these recent applications about having it travel with the owner instead of with the property. Or be like a conditional use that leaves when there's a sale. And I like that security. I think both of them are easier to, both of them have loopholes as far as enforcement goes, but I feel like that one is an easier thing to enforce. So how do you feel about this item like my feelings are this doesn't solve the problem. So even though, as Mr. Pepperoni said, we really can't take the right away for them to ask, I feel like we can do more to make it better. And so how do you feel about that issue?
I agree, and I would love to know what the city council thinks about reinstituting the special permit path and having a reduced fee because of that, because I really do worry about making properties permanent. I do think it's harder to enforce that, and it puts a target for investors. It's a permanent property. You can't take that right away. And then
Costs go up.
Yeah, and the costs go up, and then families, the homes get chopped up. It's hard to put them back into a single family home, and you price single families out of it. I know it seems like you're creating more affordable housing, but not really. You're creating more rental units, but we have other means of rental units in the city, lots of others that are affordable. So should we not create zones where we don't chop up homes? We allow people to have a home where they could have a larger family, where it's the single family use. Like, is there value to that in a city where there's a lot more stability rather than people that kind of come and go based on school schedules and all sorts of things, which we love, by the way. I live in a neighborhood with lots of them. I'm not saying take them away completely, but we have places for them where they function really well. The pressure to make lots and lots of them in those areas then turns those areas into a different use. And, we've lost single family neighborhoods before in the city. And I'm afraid that's what would happen if you started making properties permanent in places where we haven't had ADUs before. I don't know if that makes sense, but I would much rather see a special permit, because then it feels like you have more control. If people don't meet the qualifications, if they don't uphold their agreement, you can revoke it. And you can't revoke it once you've made it permanent.
And it goes away if an investor comes in and buys it, right?
Right,
They'd have
right.
to
It goes away.
reapply and show owner
That's right.
occupancy.
So the investor doesn't come saying, I've got a guaranteed I can do this.
It's
And-
kind of like a concept plan where we are agreeing on something based on the proposal they give us, and that agreement goes away if they
Right.
propose something different.
Right. And if you think about why someone came up with the plan of getting neighbors to agree around you, it's because we don't want to have to create places where people were like, wait, I bought here because it was a certain use and now it's not. And so you've asked people to agree to that. But what I noticed, and I think others have noticed, is that people are agreeing to the use of a person, not a permanent use of the property, because they don't know who's coming next. So they like this person, they trust that they're going to use it in the right way. They're going to be part of their community and everything. But once it's permanent and they sell it to somebody else, you do not have control over that anymore. And I don't think neighbors would agree to that. So if part of the reason was getting signatures so that you knew people agreed with this, they only would agree to it because they knew the people. So I think if you said to people, do you agree that this house next to you should be a permanent ADU regardless of who lives there?
Absolutely.
I don't think so, right? And I worry about investors that want to create Airbnbs and all sorts of things. Like, this has consequences. So for me, I do feel like a special permit should be an option. It should have a much reduced fee so that that's kind of the path that people want to go. And I understand that you can't take away the rezone option or the ordinance text amendment option. But then you listen to the neighbors, you're listening to all the neighbors when those come up. And if you have a special permit option, there's a way to get an ADU. Otherwise, I'd be inclined, if I listen to the neighbors, to say no to all the rezones in certain areas and say no to all the ordinance text amendments in certain areas because everybody doesn't want it. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but that's how I feel. So,
Joel, I worry that that opens up avenues for discrimination, as well as infringing on people's property rights to do what they want on their property. So I have some issues with us kind of picking and choosing. If your neighbors like you, then you get to have an ADU. If they don't, then good luck.
well, you wouldn't have to get your neighbor's approval anymore with a special.
Well, I know, but I'm saying what you're suggesting for a process that's kind of similar to what was existing. I feel like that just kind of opens up avenues of discrimination from neighbors.
So I'm not suggesting that we get signatures at all from neighbors anymore. No. I'm suggesting that it become a special use permit where they come to the city and say, here's what we'd like to do. And the city evaluates, would this make sense or not? And if it makes sense and they meet the conditions, then you grant it. And if they don't uphold those conditions, then you revoke it.
Like a conditional use
It's a
permit.
conditional use permit.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm fine with that. Maybe I just misunderstood some of the,
So that doesn't bother you
not as much.
as much.
no.
Okay.
Conditions
Um,
like the driveway, and these are the conditions we're talking about.
Well, all the conditions that are naturally in there for an ADU. And let's say they start with that, but then all of a sudden circumstances change. So this would be an example. So they say, okay, we're going to put, our children are going to live in the top and then we're going to have renters in the basement. And that's fine until those children finish school in 2 years. And now they've just got renters in the top and renters in the bottom. So then the city could say, you're not meeting your conditional use anymore. So we're going to take that away now.
And it would be on a case by case that way.
It'd have to be.
The
'cause
condition
it's
would be
conditional
on a
use.
case.
Yeah.
But that rental license would already be rejected by the city when they come up for renewal because it's no longer owner occupied.
So I don't know why, but it is so easy for people to get around this because it's happening all the time. And it's very difficult for the city to enforce it because people lie. So the city comes out and says, who's living here? What's going on? And I know what's going on because I've seen it. And the answer they get is not what's happening. And then the city has a really hard time getting at that property for whatever reason.
But here's the problem for me is that I don't see changing the pathway resolving that honesty problem. Like the enforcement problem is still going to be a problem, whether it's a conditional use permit or a permanent
You're right.
land use.
The only thing
permission.
is neighbors would recognize that it's conditional use and you'd likely have people saying, okay, we're good with this. And then if that changes, we're going to ask the city to enforce on this. Yeah. Which is, but that's how the system is now. Neighbor has to point it out to the city now, right? It's unfortunate, but that's how it is.
Could I actually ask a question on fees again? Roughly how many man hours is it taking for an ordinance text amendment dealing with an ADU? Would that fee change? Because other ordinance text amendments maybe are more involved, require more work, but is this taking 20, 30, 40 hours of staff time? Or are these quicker and could have a reduced fee for ADU amendments or?
That's really hard to say. The one that you most recently heard took an exorbitant amount of staff time. So it's so site specific. Depends on how the neighbors react to it and how much we have to respond to the neighbor's reaction. It's really hard for me to say that. Typically, you would think it would be less time than other zone changes, but all bets were off with the last one you guys heard.
I would just hate for us to take away a cheaper or even in some instances free option and make it $1,100. That feels a little prohibitive, but I also I understand if staff's spending weeks of time to prepare, that's also valuable time.
Yeah.
What's the fine for not being legitimate in an ADU?
So the fine structure that we have in the city for violations, if we go the route of civil fines, is $100 a day per violation for the first 30 days, and then it escalates to $250 a day per violation for the next 30 days. And then after that, $500 a day in perpetuity, as long as the violation persists.
And that's from the day that it's reported or the day that you knock on their door and they say, yes, we're illegal,
So from the time that we,
which never happens.
from the time that we verify the violation, we send a notification out to the owner that you're in violation. That gives them 2 weeks to come into compliance. At the day after their compliance date is when the fines start to accrue.
Mr. Chairman,
thank
I'd
you.
just also like to remind the planning commission, this is a code text amendment. So the planning commission should vote up or down on the amendment itself.
Right.
Then give the city council any feedback you'd like to, but it's really voting up or down on the amendment itself.
The reason I'm asking these questions is because I don't know if just voting for it because it's a Band-Aid is the right thing to do, or if I say I'm voting against it because I don't think it's the right thing to do, or if that's even a legal reason to vote against it because we have to allow the pathway. So do you want to advise us on how to have our opinions most strongly heard without voting for something that would actually not be legal to vote? Because you said we can't take this pathway away. So by saying we recommend denial, are we not giving an avenue?
Well, the avenues of the code amendment and the rezoning remain.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not even going to address that.
So I think if you vote
Right.
no, you're saying leave this option, right? What you're saying. I mean,
But
for
doesn't
me,
a vote no also say, I don't think this is the right solution?
I mean,
I'm
I think
okay
you
with
could make
taking
that
it out.
comment with your vote, right? To be clear, if you wanted to. I think for me, like Matthew said earlier, I don't know if he still feels this way, but it's a step in the right direction. It is something better. I think a lot of us recognize that there's still issues in this area, but for a while now, as I've heard these cases come to us, I've looked at it. I've tried to look at ADUs with fresh eyes, try to be fair with it. I don't have a personal issue with ADUs as something that exists, right? But the more I look into it, the more I study it, I just don't feel like this is addressing the issues that we have in our particular city. There are cities where it does, but this is not what we have here. Like Melissa said, we have other opportunities for low-cost rentals in the city. And I actually worry if ADUs are kind of competing with those and we could actually get some more transit-oriented, low-cost apartments, et cetera, that would be better, right? And so I guess I've kind of felt for a while now that maybe the answer is to just allow them, sure, but not give them special treatment. And what we've been doing is giving them special treatment. And now what this does in my mind is just makes it like any other rezone request, any other change to your property you want to make. It's now just normal, right? And so I kind of like
Don't we
that.
do that though? Because so many people aren't compliant. I mean, there's so many people breaking the law.
Yeah, except
It's normal in my
it's-
neighborhood and it has been, and I've lived there for 30 years.
For sure, but I don't think, as we've experimented with this, I don't think having these special paths have caused a huge wave of people coming to normalize their properties. A few have, and each one has taken lots of time of staff. It's taken us a lot of time. I remember commenting to my wife one night, I was like, I spent an hour hearing the neighborhood about an ADU, and then I spent an hour approving a 60-unit apartment building that had low-cost units in it, right? And I'm like, the second hour was a way better use of my time.
But that's from
Right.
the renter's point of view. We're talking about landlords trying to monetize their homes so they can own them or stay in them. So that's from the one angle you're saying, well, it's neither here nor there for the renters. And I'm like, yeah, we're talking about the landlords though.
Yeah, and
Like
on
we have
that
land
side, I mean,
barons who own all of these apartments. Of course, they would love us to give more you know what I mean? Get rid of the
Yeah.
ADU program. That's only going to bolster their.
I mean,
You
I
see where I'm
think,
going?
yeah, but I think in my mind, as we've looked around the country and stuff, it's just failed to lower prices and make homes more affordable. In fact, in neighborhoods where they allow them, prices tend to go up because now you've increased demand. You've made it affordable for a whole new segment. And so you've actually increased demand, not
Right, but
lowered.
have we allowed people to buy homes because, and we've had that discussion
Yeah.
before, where you're like, yeah, but the home costs go up. And I said, yeah, but the banks will allow you to loan more money because you can monetize your house.
Right, but again, prices go up. That's the bottom line, right? They don't go down when you add ADUs. What it
And they-
does
they
is
go
it
up for the houses
provides,
that don't have ADUs as well.
yeah,
They go up for the houses that don't have ADUs in the neighborhood as well. So then it gets
whole
more,
neighborhood
the
goes
whole
up.
neighborhood. So then it makes it more expensive for families. Families can't afford the homes anymore.
so it's been an interesting experiment, but I think
That
it's not
that
that
hasn't
good.
been my experience. I worked in a mortgage lending place for a couple of years, and that was not my experience. The homes that had ADUs were worth more than the one next door that didn't. That was an Orem.
Yeah, and at least in some studies I looked at in San Luis Obispo and some other places, it was and Portland was another one. It was an entire neighborhood rise in prices. In fact, it was interesting because there were some real estate people trying to argue, hey, look, it's going to bolster your property values and it's going to make homes cheaper. And I'm like, that's not the same thing, right? Like you can't have both. So anyway, I think in my opinion, it's just a lot of time. It's very hard. And like I said, I don't think that people that want to have ADUs are bad in any way. I don't think ADUs ruin neighborhoods. I don't have personal issues with it. I just don't think as a policy, we're benefiting from giving it special treatment. And so for me, this code rewrite just returns it to now you're treated like everybody else that wants to change the use of their land, right? You still can do it. We're not taking away those normal paths that everybody has. We're just making it the normal path again. And I like that. I think it's cleaner.
Well, I think like Mr. Pepperoni said, that our question is up or down. So I do think this has to go away and we can't have that signature process anymore. That was terrible. So yeah, it's not the final thing that I would hope that the city council will come up with some better solutions for these sorts of problems. But it certainly, to me, needs to be removed.
Any other comments, thoughts, questions?
My thoughts are very similar that this section of the code needs to be fixed. This is an experiment for a couple of years. It didn't work. Pitting neighbor against neighbor is not a good idea, not a good policy. So I'm supporting removing this.
Okay, are we ready for a motion then? I mean, several have expressed a feeling that we want, that we don't think this is the end, right? Is that something
I have a list of things I could just give
as
before a
recommendations?
motion as recommendations
Great.
or concerns that this doesn't fix everything. And that's that enforcement is still impossible. It doesn't make it easier to come into compliance to have to go through this process. So I don't think it's going to encourage people to apply to be an ADU. They'll just do it illegally. And I don't think that an exception that stays with the property and not the owner is ideal. Does that capture the main things we were concerned about?
Okay, so Sandy, when we put that report together, can we make sure that gets noted in there? Okay, are we ready for a motion on this? Who would like to make the motion?
I can make the motion. That's okay.
Mhm.
I propose that we approve,
Recommend.
I recommend the approval, thank you. Recommend the approval of item number 1, the Provo City Council requests ordinance text amendments to chapters 14.30 to replace the map and 14.30.020 and remove 14.30.040.
We have a second.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, let's begin voting. Matthew?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye, and so the item passes 6-1. Okay, let's go to item 2. Should I read in all 3 of these together, Aaron? Okay, so I'm going to read in items 2, 3, and 4 as one item, as they're all related. Item 2 is James Chapman requests a general plan map amendment for 12.56 acres of land to reclassify from commercial to residential in order to develop a 150-unit townhome development located approximately at 1870 South, 500 West. And then item 3, James Chapman requests a zone map amendment from the FC3 Freeway Commercial 3 zone to the LDR Low Density Residential Zone for 12.56 acres of land in order to develop a 150-unit townhome community located approximately at 1870 South, 500 West. And item 4, James Chapman requests project plan approval for a 150-unit townhome community in a proposed LDR Low Density Residential Zone located approximately at 1870 South, 500 West.
Okay, thank you for reading this all in. So the property here, as we've, it's been in front of you before with the Walmart project and the changes in the zoning before that. So we're here tonight to discuss the remainder of the parcel. As you voted to approve the Walmart, it's still working through staff review and trying to satisfy some of the engineering and infrastructure issues so it can move forward in permits. But tonight we're looking at the kind of the battle axe shaped portion of the property. So the 3 asks, like was read in, general plan map, a zone amendment, and a project plan. A project plan rather than a concept plan. So just want to highlight that again. I know I tried to point that out in the staff reports, but it is unusual to have the full project plan at this point in the process. I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. So the justifications for the 2 amendments, the general plan map amendment and the zone map amendment, are in front of you and also detailed in the report, mainly to provide additional housing, as is a goal of Provo City General Plan. And in this situation, it could provide a nice buffer from the commercial uses in the FC3 zone to the R18 zone to the north in the Lakewood neighborhood. The project plan details, you see the layout there of 150 townhomes, several different models that we'll get into with the elevations. You can see the bedroom count there, and that they've satisfied the parking count for the number of bedrooms and units that they propose. Amenity space, you'll see in this report, they scored very high by providing a variety of amenities, but they also went beyond the minimum percentage for the LDR zone for the amount of space you have to provide in amenities. So you'll note that there's a clubhouse, pickleball court, open spaces, dog parks, playgrounds, a variety of things to hopefully appease the different tenants that would live here. And the units themselves, the applicant has additional slides on these through his presentation, but just to summarize, they're 2-story townhomes. There's a couple different styles per color set. So this is the first set, and then there's more similar style building, but just different colors in the grays and blues. The recommendations are a bit unusual. They're kind of convoluted, and hopefully I explained that the reasoning behind that well in the staff report. Essentially, we think this all works together very well. If the Walmart goes in, gets built, the townhomes adjacent to it, it's a good matching of a mixed use. It provides that buffer like the applicant describes. However, there's a risk. If the Walmart property doesn't move forward, if they can't resolve staff concerns in CRC, if they can't get the building permits, all the different steps that they have to finish up, then we're taking away prime commercial land from a future developer. And that's a pretty big risk in staff's opinion. So we want to be careful about how we approve this. I've recommended some conditions on all 3 of these items to try to guard against that from happening. But other than that, that's all I have prepared. And I should probably also say this. It doesn't matter that it's a Walmart. It could be a Floor and Decor. It could be a Best Buy taking up that same spot. But the point is that there's a project that's already done a site plan approval. We know the space that they need, and there's a remainder. Without that approved site plan, then that risk comes in. So any questions?
Thank you, Aaron. I have one question right off. Can you tell us the status of the Walmart building?
Yeah, so they are, again, still on the staff review. So they're working through mainly engineering, on-site and off-site issues with streets, and then some infrastructure adjustments in their plans through the site. So they're working through those details, and we hope that they continue on.
Okay, thanks.
So a follow-up to that, is there any risk that it may not, how would you rate the risk that it may not go forward?
Go ahead, Bill.
I think the risks are small, but we have learned not to hedge our bets, right? There's been too many cases where we weren't careful enough, we weren't thorough enough, and we didn't get what the benefit the city thought they were getting out of the project. So we're trying to guard against that.
Okay, let's go on my left. I think Matthew had his hand up.
We all had our hand up, but thank you.
Yeah, everybody did.
Yeah, a couple of questions. First of all, I think a buffer between the Walmart and this existing single family is really wise. It's way better than the Walmart being 50 or 100 feet closer or whatever they could go setback wise against that in my mind. Can you clarify for me, it's hard on this map, if you could go back a slide or two to where you see the buildings on the map? What is the setback? That'll work. What is the setback from, let's say, building 13, the face of building 13 to the property line?
That's a side setback. So that would be 10-foot minimum.
And is that what it is across all of those buildings?
Yeah, it's more than the 10-foot minimum, but it is complying with the side yard setback.
And is that set by which zone we would be approving or what they've applied for, or could we modify that setback in some way?
That's with the LDR zone.
Okay.
The minimum is 10 foot on a side yard in the LDR zone, which is what they're proposing.
Okay.
There'd be an 8-foot trail there and then some landscaping on the side.
Okay. And then can you also clarify building 24 and 25, will there be parking allowed on that street, on the curb?
And that's a David Day question. Is he here still?
Yeah.
I don't know what the width of that street, it just strikes me as very,
Would they be able to park on that secondary access street? Is there going to be on-street parking?
in front of 24, building 24 and 25.
29, I'm guessing as well.
I guess 23, probably not,
Is it
but
gonna be built to-
any of those that face the street, not the internal, I'm
Yeah,
curious.
I don't know that we have the dimension on that. If it's 30 feet wide or greater, it would have parking. If it's less than that, it wouldn't. But it has to have 2 full travel lanes open at all times. So I don't have a scale on that. So
Excuse me, are you the applicant? We'll have you give your presentation. We'll
Okay.
ask you at that time.
Plan to answer that question for me. Another question, why not just wait? If there is a concern about Walmart, why do this now before Walmart, the Walmart site's proceeding?
The applicant has gone through the process and is
Okay.
ready to move forward.
Okay. And I see the Walmart site, but I don't see does the Walmart site with parking and the Walmart take up everything, or are there still pads within
No,
the
so
remainder?
that white area to the south of the secondary access road there, all that white area are future commercial pads.
Okay, so there are it's not just Walmart and this housing, it's Walmart's more stuff and the housing.
Correct.
Okay, since I think everybody had questions, let's just move from left to right.
My question was on parking. So it looks like you're 49 stalls over the required parking. And you also have probably about double that for the Walmart. Is there any option for like a shared parking agreement, or it just seems like quite a sea of parking for some sort of medium density, low density townhomes, almost 3 cars per unit. That seems like a lot to me.
The difficulty with that is residential uses have to be on the same parcel. The parking has to be on the same parcel as the
Same.
primary use.
Lisa? Ann's turn.
Would this be a good candidate for a continuation? Until we find out if that Walmart's actually going to happen?
And that's an option for you.
Another option, just to clarify though, in the recommendation is to put a condition on our recommendation, correct?
I had a question about, are these rear loading? So no one's coming in and out of garages that on 24, 25, 29, 30?
Yes, those are all, the garages are all on the back side of
The
those.
north side, okay.
North side.
So a few questions too.
Okay, John?
So this is a rental only as proposed, right? For families only, so not,
Well, yeah, so family or 3 unrelated singles as the code allows.
okay. I read it as family, but so will this compete with Geneva Road and Center Street apartments that are going on also right now? Is there any concern with having both of these at major arteries being added in, taking away commercial space?
Well, the one at Center, it was already zoned, MDR. So I think the concern that we would have is taking away commercial space if this approved site plan goes away for the Walmart.
So that's kind of my next question. How many pads are available? How much additional commercial space is available?
I think it would depend on the size of the pads needed,
Up to 5.
up to 5.
Up to 5. Thank you.
And then the Walmart has got a fuel island. You can see the fuel island in the bottom of your picture.
That would be for a fuel island. Okay, thank you. That's kind of what I was wondering about with the airport expansion that we've just been talking about, the anticipation of additional volume through the airport. This feels like a prime real estate for traffic coming from South County coming to the airport or other parts in Provo. And so this feels like a really great place for services. And now that the airport's growing up and there's the other areas, does this feel like an opportunity? Are we bypassing potential commercial opportunities by putting residential here?
Potentially, right?
That's the trade-off.
So then, are there any additional, not obvious to me benefits to Provo by putting this as residential now?
Other than those listed in your staff report and spoken of.
Just general benefits, just.
Well, we certainly have a need in the city for housing, right? And we have a need for rental units that are, like was talked about earlier today in your pre-meeting, 3 bedrooms, larger rental units. So this is filling a market niche between most apartments we have and being able to move into your own home.
Okay. When you look at the parking, anyway, I'll ask that later. That's all for right now.
Okay, Joel?
How far is that fuel island from the townhomes? Looking at the scale, it looks like about 150, 200 feet. If I'm not mistaken, there are FHA requirements that homes need to be more than 300 feet away from fuel islands before you run into issues getting a mortgage.
Yeah, and these would be rentals, so that wouldn't become an issue.
Well, some of them we were talking about being for sale units, right? And I don't think renters
That's a
should be
recommendation of staff, but that's not what's been offered.
And renting versus owning, I don't want to be in a home 120 feet from a fuel station if there's concerns at 300 feet.
Right, but unless there's a code to back that up. I get what you're saying, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'll save it for the discussion.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Aaron. Go ahead and invite the applicant forward at this time. You'll have 15 minutes for your presentation, and then we'll ask you questions at the end.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is James Chapman with Folger Pratt. A little bit about Folger Pratt. I'm not sure if I've seen you individually before, but we've been working in Provo for quite some time now. We are multifamily apartment developers, and back in September of 23, Planning Commission and City Council approved a project at that time was called River District, and it is currently in lease up, and you know, quite a little bit of ways from ending construction, but lease up's going really well. As you can see, really high quality design. It's a beautiful project. I would recommend, you know, if anyone wants to go and tour the community, would be happy to set up a meeting with our community manager. But we take a lot of care in the design of all our projects, as you could see in this community. This isn't the first time I've followed Aaron in a presentation, and oftentimes I'm just repeating some of the stuff that he's already said. So forgive me for that. But this is the existing site. Again, we're focused on the area in green. But I would like to point out that this site requires significant investment in order to make it developable. It is about 4 to 5 feet below floodplain currently, requiring 300,000 plus cubic yards of fill be brought in. And so that investment by the property owner and Walmart is what is allowing this project to happen. In addition to that, there are significant road improvements driven by the use of the project, but will also benefit. And to also point out that there's FC3 zoning to the south of this site as well that's available for development. So that those road improvements help benefit this area in general. Aaron already pointed out that we're rezoning this site to LDR, which is a compatible use to the existing LDR zone for the Osprey townhomes to our west and the single family homes to the north. This makes sense for a variety of reasons. We've already touched on the compatibility of uses to our neighbors and the buffer that it provides to the single family neighborhood. And that's not just a visual buffer, but it's also a sound buffer to the loading trucks that come in and out on the backside of the Walmart. I have a section later in this slide, but the setback we proposed is actually 20 feet from that northern property line. So it's greater than the minimum, depending on side or front, et cetera. So that's what we've proposed. This type of housing, you know, it achieves many of the goals and objectives of the general plan. But it also, and Bill touched on, you know, hitting that niche in between, you know, stacked flat, normal apartment living and buying a home. And the demographic that we see, it's called build for rent townhomes, which I'm sure you've heard before. The demographic we see, it's interesting to see it in practice, you know, having seen the thesis of it as well, is it hits the young 30s, you know, they're tired of living in an apartment. They want to kind of have a little bit more of a home feeling. And so this type of townhome provides that. But in addition to that, a lot of retirees and older demographic, they're looking to downsize. They're, you know, don't want to deal with the pains of home maintenance anymore. And so those are kind of the two demographics we're seeing moving into these build for rent townhome communities. So hopefully this slide kind of puts a greater context on the overall site plan. Again, we're focused on the 12.5 acre townhome community here, but this is a greater project, which really is going to function as a horizontal mixed use community. You know, we've got main entry access that aligns with the Osprey townhomes off of 5th West, secondary access, which is a right in, right out, which will serve both our community and Walmart. Walmart's main entrance, a new signalized entrance off of Lakeview Parkway. And again, you can see the retail pads that are currently, you know, demised right now, but it's about 4 acres that'll be left over for additional retail. Touching on the townhome styles, 2 different townhome styles, one with a more monochromatic, with black trim, kind of a modern farmhouse style, and then one that's a little bit more conventional, kind of matching the style of homes in the neighborhood. Aaron did a great job touching on our open space. Significant open space, a lot of connectivity, playgrounds, open play areas. I'll also point out that we didn't even include it in the kind of point system of amenity spaces, but to the south side of the northern townhomes, we kind of have a series of fitness stations that are proposed to kind of connect people through the community. And in addition to that, there's an existing trail on the northern property line. It's in pretty bad shape. And we held we presented at a neighborhood meeting, District 3, back in May. And it was pretty clear to us that keeping that trail or enhancing that trail would be important to the community. And so this is a proposed section showing what that trail looks like. Again, you can see the dark black line on the bottom representing the property line. We have a 20-foot setback, 8-foot proposed asphalt trail. You can kind of see where, we're needing to fill the site to bring it above floodplain. So we have a short retaining wall to our townhomes, screening. So, we really think this is a benefit to the community and as well to our residents. That's really all my presentation. In conclusion, I want to thank staff. We've worked with staff for many years now. We've got a great city staff, and so we really appreciate their help getting us to this point. And we look forward to bringing this project to fruition.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Melissa?
Are there going to be any HOA fees?
No HOA. This rental community, it will be owned,
Right, so-
owned and maintained by the owner.
You don't charge them for any use of the amenities or anything?
Correct.
renters.
It's just
Okay.
within there. Yep.
And then why are you not offering any ownership?
Reducing, at a certain point, a rental community, it does not make economic sense if you start reducing the number of units that are available in that community. And it's looked at as a long-term ownership asset by the owner, and it's just not the business model. In addition to that, we think that in this kind of horizontal mixed use nature, that a rental community aligns better being so close to the busier retail uses than a for sale community does.
Other questions, Joel?
I have a couple of questions. So it's funny that it keeps being brought up as an example of a buffer for the single family homes. What kind of buffer is there for these homes? People live in these too, right? And it seems like residential is being shown as sort of incompatible with being so close to the Walmart. So what are you doing to protect these residents from that busy commercial activity and yeah, a big box use in particular?
Fair question. So there is a proposed 6-foot retaining wall separating the and 6 foot, I believe, is the max height for a wall in the city code between on that property line separating Walmart and the rental townhomes. And we've designed it in a way that the townhomes are closer to the single family neighborhood, and so the road and parking and fitness stations and green space there creates that separation. That's a challenging area to design and make attractive. And so we think by doing, it's a 4 packs of townhomes that you can kind of see have jog along, so that it creates more of a dynamic feel. It's not just kind of a straight line. So really it was, an effort to make that area usable, valuable, and a benefit to the community.
Is there a grading difference between the two sites? Between the Walmart and the townhomes?
No, not substantial. The whole site, like I said, the whole site's about 4 to 5 feet below floodplain. It's all going to be brought up about 6 feet, I think, in general, if I was averaging it out.
And is there pedestrian interconnectivity between the townhomes and the Walmart?
Yes, along that secondary access point. There's no separation on the left side of Walmart. That wall only exists on the northern side.
Okay. About how far is that stretch? I'm wondering if those residents in the north, are they gonna have to hop in their car to drive a half mile around to get to the Walmart?
They can come.
I'd have to scale it out, but
that's what I'm wondering how far that north wall stretches.
Yeah, it's just along that straight edge that you see between that corner and the kind of traffic, that turnaround circle at the end there.
Other questions, John?
Yeah, so I have some parking questions. When I looked at the math, 150 units, 2 parking spaces for each unit is 300 spaces. Then you've got 95 additional spaces. It looks like most of those, I'm looking at the block of homes, buildings, what is that? 2021 through 28, in that bottom left corner, there really isn't any visitor parking in that area at all, is there? So the 0.25, I believe, is for visitors. And so I don't see any visitor parking in that area. I'm curious. It wasn't clear to me at the 36-foot wide road, will you be able to put visitors park along that road?
Yes, so it was designed with the intention of having on-street parking.
Okay.
We have not had detailed discussion with the city on that parking. But the on-street parking is provided on the main thoroughfare through the community. And yes, there is more available surface parking elsewhere. That kind of pocket is does not have as much surface parking as the rest does, but it would be it would be shared. There's great connectivity basically from that, where the orange circle is as the playground, directly over to surface parking on the right side by the Walmart, et cetera.
I just wonder, I drive by apartments regularly where there's a lot of on-street parking, Geneva Road and other areas from the apartments. And I wonder if the same thing will happen here. If people have more than 2 cars or visitors come, will the parking encroach upon the neighborhood at all?
Well, we're dealing with the community that we have, the Dendry, is very similar in nature, and parking is controlled. Each resident would have their car registered with property management. If they have visitors, they have passes for visitor parking. And it does take, basically it's a property management operating issue of enforcing that. But that's also why we provided so much more parking above the city required minimum, because of that very issue. We know, every meeting that I go to like this is all parking in the neighborhood is always brought up as an issue. So we do our very best to try to avoid that.
All right, thank you. Silly question perhaps, but the amenities I presume are for the residents only.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. What's the anticipated cost of rental?
That's always a hard question to answer, because it's driven by the market at the time of rent, at the time they lease, right? So that's probably, we're probably looking at 2 to 3 years, from now for that number. It's not as high rent as the Dendry, that it's a different area of town, et cetera. But it's it would be very much driven by the market surrounding this area and what that drives.
So if they were ready today, what would they be worth per unit? Or per room, I guess, 3 unrelated.
It's not per room, so it's per unit. I'll put it this way: the entry unit at the Dendry is 2,300, and so this is not as pricey as that would be. That's for a 2-bedroom at
Okay. Any other questions, Lisa?
I'm really not comfortable with giving away this much commercial, but I think this is a lovely plan. So my question for you is, would it ever be possible to reduce the amount of units so that the north side of that secondary access road could also have commercial or offices or something else that's allowed in the zone? So I'm thinking where that elbow road comes in, where by the arrow that says main entry, that line would just go straight across and there would be less. I imagine you're just in charge of the housing aspect, so of course your answer will be absolutely not. But that's what I'm leaning towards, where you get the buffer function, but also you don't give up very prime
Yeah.
commercial spots.
I'll just say that it was kind of the same answer as for sale of that. At some point, you need a certain number of units to make it an economically viable project.
Okay, Joel?
My other question was related to east-west connectivity. Like you have the East Bay Tech Center just across the freeway. Are there pedestrian, bicycle? You've got your trail going in. Okay, yeah. So I'm wondering how you're tying into existing city trail network.
So that trail and forgive me, this might be a question for city staff. We're tying into an existing trail that runs along the 15 there, then kind of wraps up to the southbound ramp. I believe there are plans for trail for future trails across that area. I don't have the details of that.
I think there already are connections to the other side of the freeway. Done it biking before, so.
Okay.
I think what Joel might be asking though is to get from one of these housing units across the commercial pads to those trails that take you across the freeway. Is there planned connectivity for that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like am I having to bike across the Walmart parking lot or across street?
Right.
Yeah, what's
there is a new so with Fifth West, there's going to be right now there's only a crosswalk on the west side of that intersection on Lakeview Parkway, and there will be a new crosswalk on the right side of that intersection as well, connecting to the trail on the south side of Lakeview Parkway. I'm not on the east side. I'm not sure what that connectivity is like there.
And then maybe you're not the right person for this question, but again, the fueling island concern. I know these units aren't for sale, but I don't know. It seems like just flipping the fueling island over to the southeast corner puts it a lot further away from this residential. I would be concerned renting one of these units if I lived, a stone's throw from a gas station. Yeah. Just wondering what options there are there, or whether there's, I don't know, screening, buffering options, things that help reduce that sort of particulate matter.
That's something we can look at.
Jonathan, can I ask?
Yes,
a question? So I don't know enough about you or your company. Are you affiliated with these pad sites or with Walmart in the project overall, or you're purchasing the land from somebody who owns the rest of
Folger Pratt
it?
is a developer working for the owner.
So the owner owns everything?
Correct.
Okay. So do you know anything about the current status of these 3 retail pads that are to the south of the townhomes?
So the current status is that will be the subject of a future project plan, and it will be retained by the owner. So the Walmart parcel will be sold to Walmart, and the owner will retain the townhomes and the commercial pads. So that we expect about 30 to 40,000 square feet of retail in those commercial pads. There are use restrictions. That's another thing with a big box retail is there are use restrictions, for other types of uses, which sometimes makes a lot of retail difficult. This is a large site, and a lot of times retail can start competing against each other, especially when it's a deep site like this is. So a lot of that retail doesn't have the visibility to the streets that it wants to have. That's why we think that focusing the retail on Lakeview Parkway, Walmart is the way to go, and the rest of the site being used for rental homes.
So a follow-up just from some of my research on this kind of thing and experience. I actually think this is a great plan. I think the idea of the buffer is different for a townhome in my mind than for the single family that's already existing. But I do sort of agree with, I think, the intent of Lisa's comment on wanting more commercial. Not that I think the market needs to drive how much commercial we actually put in. So I'm not sure I totally agree with everything she mentioned, but I do think in a condition where the owner owns both sides of the street, that it's nice to have both sides of the street related, and having big, whatever those boxes are, across the street from pretty nice townhomes seems poor planning overall to me. And I'm not sure there's a question here other than to say, would you ever consider something different? I'm thinking about other places in Provo where we have townhomes on one side and parking lots on the other. And it just drives me nuts because we're not using the space well. They're not coming to the shopping that's right adjacent. And I see this creating some of that same condition, whereas this is one of those conditions where the owner actually does own both sides of the street. Usually the street's kind of the dividing line between ownership, but in this case it's not. So we could think, the owner could think differently about how to get those to relate face to face across the street rather than using that as, rather than what we're getting, I guess is the point.
Well, I think it does depend on what the retail pads are, how the retail pads are designed. You know, there's the potential for pedestrian connectivity across that secondary access road. You know, perhaps it's a raised crosswalk, you know, with enhanced paving leading to some type of commercial plaza involved in the, you know, in those retail pads. So I think there's opportunity that to create that great connectivity. And that's why we fronted those townhomes on those retail uses, because we want that connectivity. Like I said, this really lives like a horizontal mixed use community. And, you know, I think it would be a great idea to enhance a crossing across a secondary access road to provide that connectivity. So those residents can walk across the street and use those resident serving neighborhood services.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to the public comment portion of the meeting. Just like with the last item, you may make one comment. When your time is up, you will hear a ding and the microphone will be muted. If you have questions, please, we invite you to ask those to staff. Are there any neighborhood chairs? So please come forward first. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comment.
Is it on? There we go. Okay. So I'm Brooke Barnes and I represent the Lakewood neighborhood. So I just wanted to give you guys some feedback that our neighborhood has had from our neighborhood meeting on May 7th and also from just talking to neighbors and online. I know that some people are a little bit concerned about the amount of houses or amount of townhomes that are going to be included. And I know some people are also concerned about the fact that they're rentals and not for sale. And also we did have a question about if there would be a light on 500 West. It does not look like that is the case, that there will just be a light on Lakeview, but I wanted to double check if there was a light planned, and I don't think that's the case. Right, Aaron?
Sorry, this is for
Okay.
comments. We'll make sure to ask for you
okay.
later on.
So let me just go ahead. Sorry, I need to get the rest of the comments that I got. I think that there was people were worried about the fill, about it being in the flood zone. I'm not sure how much that would make a difference. It sounds like they're mitigating that. And also, I think that there is some support for the townhome, especially now that I know a lot of the neighborhoods are really grateful that we are keeping that trail that goes back just north. And I do know that a lot of people feel that the Walmart will serve with the Epic Sports Park to be a really helpful place to go for people that are going to the sports park and maybe alleviate some of the traffic that is currently going through that neighborhood that is just north of the sports park, to have some place to go. Those were the main feedbacks that we got from the neighborhood. And I think, like I said, generally it seemed like people were open to the townhomes, but they did have some concerns with the amount, with them not being for sale, and with potential like traffic and parking issues, which I feel like they've been addressed by the developer. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
thanks.
Can I ask you one question before you sit down?
Yeah.
Lisa and I were trying to figure out this trail. So this trail goes along here and then it kind of comes along the freeway and connects in. Is that correct?
I don't think it connects anymore.
Okay.
It used to. It's a very rough trail right now. And so from what I understand, and I don't know that I'm completely accurate, but from what I understand from talking to people that live right there, is that it did used to connect there on the east end, but it currently does not connect
Okay.
right there.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Okay, we'll now open it to public comment. Each of you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. You may come forward at this time.
In response to the question about the traffic light, the intersection that's marked main entry, it will be designed to accommodate a light. It's anticipated that once this is completely built out, a light would be warranted, and at that point, the light would go in.
Okay, thank you for that. By main entry.
By main entry.
Yes.
It looks like the secondary access as well is
Right in,
right
out only, correct.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and close comment as I don't see anyone coming forward. And then we'll continue our discussion.
I have a question for staff about that trail. Because it looks like it stubs in on the northeast to connect with it, but I can't remember what the original project plan talked about doing there. Seems like it was going to improve it.
So that isn't property that's controlled by the city or by the developer. It's
Okay.
UDOT right away. I understand the same thing, that there was a trail that was improved there, but has
No,
kind
it's
of
gross
degraded
now.
over time. So the new connection would be the public sidewalk along Lakeview Parkway that goes across in front of Walmart and then hits that same network to go under the overpass to the other side.
So is that trail on the north border kind of a trail to nowhere then? At that point?
Definitely, without any participation from UDOT, that would be the case. Yeah.
Okay.
So, sorry, I'm looking at the county parcel map, and it looks like UDOT owns up to a certain point, and then South Point Development actually owns another parcel to the east. So UDOT's property is sandwiched between the Walmart and another piece of their land. I don't.
Yeah.
That's what's recorded on the county site. I don't know if it's up to date, but
Yeah, and we'll have to look at all that when they come in for a plat. A
Yeah.
plat hasn't been brought in for a review yet.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Lisa?
So I thought, I don't have a question here yet. I'll come up with one, don't worry. I thought it might be useful to all of us if I could give the history I remember of this parcel and these changes that were made. So several years ago, this was zoned agricultural, I believe. And the city came to us in their effort to get a grocery store enticed on the west side. And the planning commission was asked to change the general plan and the zone map exactly back what they're asking us to do. So, well, it was agricultural. We went to commercial or to freeway commercial. At that time, we talked about setbacks for this freeway commercial zone because I believe we made the Freeway Commercial 3 zone specifically for this, or it had never been used before. And we talked extensively about setbacks and step ups and heights and everything to create a beautiful buffer for the residential area. So as I'm looking at this with houses that are 20 feet away, the use that's already allowed in the zone gives an even better setback with height standards that are a nice buffer with the Freeway Commercial 3 zone that was built specifically with this neighborhood encounter in mind. So I think that's important to take into account, that we kind of built the zone into where it was landing so that it would be the least invasive use possible. So this, in my mind, is actually more invasive to have houses right up against their fence line. Well, 20 feet is not right up against your fence, but it will feel like it. I think it's beautiful what they're doing, but I think it's important to remember that. That having been said, if you go along Lakeview Parkway to the west towards the airport, there's really only one more corner spot that has commercial, if I'm remembering correctly, and most of them are residential. And nothing on the south side of the road is supposed to be developed. So we're talking about giving away really the most prime. On the other side, we've got the golf course. And And we're giving away the most prime spot. I don't think you can develop on the south side there.
I believe the FC3 zone actually does extend on the south side. This is the one spot that you can go south of Lakeview Parkway.
Is that correct? I'm getting a nod from Mr. Ardmore.
Yes, the one developable pad is directly south of the Walmart site.
How deep is it?
Oh,
Like, are we talking
let me look,
hotel,
I'll get back to you.
department store? Okay.
Department store.
Okay. We talked about uses like corporate headquarters or hotels or things that were visualized as a really good use for a freeway entrance. And so even though this is beautiful and it's being sent as a buffer, I think there are other buffers that would also work because of those standards that are built into the zone. I'm trying not to give opinion yet. That was a little bit of opinion. I'm trying to just remember the notes I made on history because the FC3 zone has strong transition standards. Another thing to consider is that there's not any link to transit at this spot as transit is currently put out. And one of our things to consider is when we put in a high density housing, is there link to public transit? So that's something to think about. And I think,
Ms. Jensen,
yes.
on your comment about future commercial, the West Side Plan does anticipate commercial at 1100 West in Lakeview, 1600 West in Lakeview. We've got-
Okay, so there are little pockets further
And-
down.
and
Yeah.
right
Of
next
each
to the park.
residential thing, the corner kind of has a commercial pocket.
On each of those major intersections, it
Okay.
shows, commercial potential at those in the master plan.
Okay, so not as stark.
And then also there's 5 acres on the south side of the sports park that y'all zoned commercial, and we're going
Right, the
through an
north
RFP
side
on
of
that right.
Lakeview, but the south side of the sports park.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I remembered that one and I didn't think there was another one in between.
And one more interruption to your thoughts. About 500 feet in depth on the south side of.
Okay,
Parkway.
thank you. So I can give some opinions or I can just leave that and you can go to discussion, but I just want to make sure everybody sort of knew the historical context of where it was, why it was changed, and consider that as we talk about changing it essentially back.
Okay. Yes.
Can I ask, Mr. Ardmore, what would the city's goal of ownership be? Like, based on other things that have already been approved, like how much ownership does the Osprey have? And how much would the city like to see as far as ownership for these?
That is the question that always, even as staff, we have. Osprey, townhomes, those were all for sale on the west side of 500 West. There's been projects, rezones approved by the city council that are anywhere between 30% and 60% deed restricted owner occupancy. So there's a wide range of what they could come up with. But we do know that it's a priority for the council. So we wanted to make sure that was illustrated in the staff report.
Ms. Kendall, related to that question. So if you look at the map, if you're going to the commercial area and you're coming from the south or the east, you're probably going to use the south signalized Walmart entrance, correct? But if you're coming from the north, you're coming down 500 West, you're probably going to use that main entrance, correct? Which, especially if it has a light in a few years, then that's what you're going to use. We anticipate significant traffic through that street, which we're going to have dedicated as a city street, heading through this to get to the Walmart site. If I go to this site, that's how I'll drive down 500 West. Because of that traffic impact, staff has a greater comfort level with rental units here, because if these were for sale, we would get no end of complaints about that cut through traffic that the staff required, because that's how this thing works and functions. This is a kind of a unique area, unique situation where it's probably has some warrant towards being rental over sold.
But that's another argument in favor of that little elbow there inside of that road, not being residential, but being commercial. But you could just take out that little corner and have it be nestled by that road and be less invasive in the neighborhood.
How many units are in the Osprey?
220, 224,
Two-
220,
220 and 100% ownership
100% for sale.
for sale.
Okay, Matthew?
Aaron, just to clarify, so they're showing 20 feet on this north property line from the building, that setback.
Yeah.
But 10 is the code.
10 would be the minimum.
And what teeth are in this plan that we're seeing versus potential future change before they actually build it?
This is it.
This is the project plan unless the city council negotiates with the developer to do some type of agreement on aspects of this plan.
They would come back to us if they wanted something different.
So there'll be a development
No.
agreement because it's a zone change. And that
Okay.
development agreement will tie in that 20-foot setback.
Because of the plan.
Yes.
Okay.
What does the FC3 transition zone look like? We're really going to
Sandy,
quiz
if
you
could
today.
Actually pull up the kind of hold over to this main screen. It's 1420C 070. So that's the building height section of that C3 zone, which illustrates the point that Lisa was stating. It's going to be a lot easier for us to look at this picture than for me to try to explain the different setbacks and height restrictions and
Right.
Oh,
parapet wall.
and landscaping too, I forgot.
070. So there it is. So that's what was tied into this in respect of that specific neighborhood in the R18 zone in Lakewood. Because like Lisa said, this FC3 zone was created for this parcel. It exists nowhere else in the city currently. So that was in mind as we created these regulations.
Does this proposal meet all these requirements?
It's different.
It
It's
doesn't have
different
to.
because this is a proposed LDR zone. So they wouldn't have to meet these requirements.
So my point in bringing it up was that you would have to be 65 feet setback in order to build something in the FC3 zone. Because, so it would automatically create a larger naturescaped buffer by the requirements here.
I mean, looking at this though, you're either got 65 feet of just empty space or you've got townhomes, then 65 feet of space until the Walmart, right? So it is a bigger buffer than what it would be. I personal opinion, but I think there's a lot of stock in the idea of the people who decide to move in here knew what was going to be next door. The people who live just north of it did not, right? And so there's a difference there in how that feels as far as a buffer goes. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns?
I want to ask you a question. Actually, you made a comment about wanting more commercial on this site. Now with what Bill just identified as more pockets of commercial, can you help me understand why you want more commercial? Why you think that's
I just
important?
think that a freeway interchange is the spot where you want it. When we put the zone on here, when we discussed it, like we were thinking of hotels and other things that support the airport and that you would logically find at an interchange that would be perfectly compatible as residential buffers between this subdivision and something else. And so I thought if we scale back on this housing a little bit and put a little bit more of something that's going to draw money into the city, that feels like a win-win.
And across the freeway, we have lots of pads, many of which are vacant, including a mall that's struggling. So how is this? Right,
That's a good
there's a
point.
trade-off
That's a
component
good
that
point.
I'm not questioning.
No,
I'm trying
but
to
I think-
understand the
I think
history
the
and the thoughts.
location is better. So if commercial were going to thrive, I would imagine it would do better here than a little bit further off the freeway. I just am thinking of
Okay.
all the times I've been on a road trip and I don't need to be able to see the Days Inn from Lakeview Parkway because I know it's right there behind the Burger King or whatever, so
Okay.
it doesn't need to be adjacent. Like as was described, there's some supporting commercial uses that can be nestled back between the Walmart and a food establishment or a gas station that is still very visible, still very usable, still very income producing. So I just didn't want to give the spot away
I
to
guess-
something else that goes almost anywhere else in the city.
And part of my thinking is these are smart people doing the math and trying to figure this out. There's a reason this is the proposal and not that list of
Agreed,
things.
agreed.
But I wanted to
And I'm
understand.
not really arguing, saying that this is wrong. I'm just saying,
Okay.
let's not
I wanted
lose
to
our
understand
opportunity
more.
to do
Okay.
what we thought we were doing, if it still matters.
And I have to agree, I think in this case, because I think commercial would be a higher value to the landowner, to me, it's a little bit the market speaking, right? And saying, yeah, pads right along Lakeview Parkway, yeah, the Walmart right at the interchange, but just getting more was an uphill battle. Let's go with this townhome development, create a buffer, et cetera. I think there's quite a few hotels around the mall, and that's pretty close, and that may be creating competition in this area. I think there's always the possibility of a hotel going up kind of between the sports park and the airport kind of thing in the future. So that might be competing with this area. It's a hard question because I agree. We want to make sure, because of sales tax revenue and all that kind of stuff, that we don't give away good commercial land. But at the same time, we don't want land to stay vacant because we forced it into something that the market want to sustain, right? That's the balance we have to try to figure out here. I mean, while I'm talking, just some things that I really like about it. I like the trail being maintained. I really hope we can connect that in on the backside, because I think that'd be a much nicer way to kind of cut across, to go across the freeway, than to come around the front of Walmart and all the traffic that entails. So I would love to see that get connected in. I think the outline of the townhomes dealing with kind of an odd shaped property is actually very well done. The amenities are great. The clubhouse looks really nice. There's a lot of good things about this development. The other balance that I still haven't figured out how to balance is rental versus purchased units, right? We need more purchasable units in this city, especially in kind of a more, I can't even call it entry point anymore, but more entry point for people to buy. But at the same time, we also need larger rentals in this city, because over and over again, we just see one bedroom, 2 bedroom, 1 bedroom. So there is a benefit there as well. Yeah, so that kind of area I'm not so sure about. And then as well, balancing commercial with residential, I'm not so sure. But the development itself, I really like how they've done things.
Hearing that Osprey across the street is 100% for purchase also makes me less reticent about it. Yeah. And I don't know what you could put on this shaped lot commercially except for a strip mall. And I don't know how attractive that is either.
Yeah, especially with it not facing the main road.
Right.
It decreases its usability a little bit.
I had one more question for Aaron, if that's all right. I believe in your initial slide, you mentioned that for that your recommendations were that we conditionally approve the item 2 and item 3, and that item 4 that we ask about making some part of those sellable units, not rental units. Is that correct?
So more specifically, 2 and 3, our staff recommendation is that the planning commission recommend to the city council approval and recommend these as conditions on those 2 items. On the project plan, we recommend approval subject to several things. One of them, we believe that there's going to be a discussion of some number of units being owner occupied for sale units. So we wanted to make sure that that was caught in whatever motion you make as well.
Okay, thank you.
It would be very easy to make that north strip for sale units because they're nestled back there with a wall that protects them, and the other ones could be rentals. And I know that makes the managing more difficult, but
Yeah, you'd have to have some sort of HOA fee, I think, to contribute to some of the amenities. But Matthew?
Am I allowed to ask a question of the developer again?
yeah.
Is that okay?
Yep.
So I was in a meeting on Friday, a real estate conference, and the panel was talking about the comparison between for rent and for sale. And I think what they said from all their research, and these were very important all over the country, that it's, in terms of affordability, it is 40% cheaper to rent than to buy the same sized unit in a kind of a single family, other kind of venue. Does that seem in the ballpark, or how would you, because I understand what the city council wants and what's come up here, but at the same time, I'm not sure it's solving what we think it's solving. And do you have any thoughts on the comparison? These these 2 and 3 bedroom units compared to a for sale and what a mortgage would take in current market?
Um,
You understand what I'm
I
asking?
do understand. I think you would have to look at, look at, you know, if, you know, I don't know if Aaron can be quick on the draw, but what the Osprey townhomes are going for. I think that would be a quick comparison of what the, you know, what a mortgage would be for those units, compared to the rent for ours. I think it's significantly more. You know, our units are.
And you're giving amenity package that if you made these for sale, probably wouldn't stay intact.
Correct.
I would think.
Or you'd have
You
to have
would,
a really high
Yeah, I mean,
HOA.
there's
or
some
really high
high
HOA,
HOA
which
fees,
now
yeah.
totally makes it even more unaffordable. So I think there's a reality that's happening in the marketplace that doesn't tell me make these all for sale. It tells me be thoughtful about what's the right in the overall region, in the city, what's going on.
100%.
It doesn't bother me that these are all for rent. We're getting a great product because they're all for rent with the management company that's going to keep them looking that way.
I was actually
That's-
thinking that
yeah.
they'll be even nicer because the owner cares about them staying nice.
That's right.
But it
yeah.
does nothing for the accumulation of wealth for our population. So even though it costs more, that's just money they're dumping into somebody's pocket who owns it.
But they can't afford the comparable.
Well, I don't know that they can't. There's still people who want houses for sale, right? We don't have a glut of homes for sale.
So you're saying it's higher, it's more expensive because there's a shortage.
Yeah, I'm saying like, we can't just say, oh, well, people need a cheaper option, so we're just going to rent to them instead of selling. I'm like, no, we want our populace to accumulate wealth. And also we can't base our decisions on a current market because we are a body who's supposed to be thinking of the future. So it's not like, oh, this is what makes sense for this developer, so that must be what makes sense. I'm like, there could be any number of variables why the developer wants to build rentals that that may or may not be in alignment with what our needs are. But I fully agree with the idea that we should be thinking about the airport and the way the city should be expanding for the next 30 years. And I think your arguments about having a good intersection and be thinking about what people will need there in 10, 20 years, even though the market doesn't need it now, doesn't mean we need to fill up the property with what is useful now. We need to be thinking about what is useful to build our community. And I know that half of the traffic that happens through the Salt Lake Airport is from Utah Valley, which means we need that airport to grow desperately. And this may very well be a cash cow for anybody for commercial who thinks, why would we have ever built townhouses there? They may think that in 5 years. So I feel like Lisa made some really excellent points there. And I guess I'm just trying to bolster them up and say, here.
Okay.
I would add it's the mix that matters in my mind. We can't, if we built all for sale condos, all for sale townhomes, we've got a problem.
Sure,
It's
but
the
there's-
mix of everything that matters
Sure,
a
but
lot.
there's no shortage of rentals in Provo City. We have a lot of rentals.
We have a lot of student rentals.
Well, we need it more
It-
owner occupied in general over the whole country.
I guess what I'm saying is we think we need it all.
I don't
have a
think we're
question.
missing anything though, is what I'm saying, except for maybe more owner occupied.
So, okay, I have one question before we let you sit down real quick. Sorry.
No worries.
The staff is requesting that we put a condition that, this doesn't get fully finalized until Walmart actually begins construction on the site. And I just wanted your feedback, your thoughts on that condition.
So we're working with Walmart's design team actively. We are working, we've hired consultants that have submitted to UDOT and to the city for improvements on Lakeview Parkway and the interchange. Speaking of the trail connection, that's something we've been discussing about, what needs to be done to that space in the UDOT right of way that currently has the trail. So that I should have maybe continued on with that in my previous discussion, but that there's the opportunity to improve that trail connecting up to where it looks like it's just been kind of overgrown and filled over top of. So there's the opportunity to improve that as well. Walmart's design team is full steam ahead on addressing any lingering city comments and all the necessary improvements that are needed for the infrastructure around the site. And so I'm highly confident in
So in the
future
end, if
Walmart.
we do that condition, that's not a concern to you.
No.
Okay, great. Okay, well, we got them up here. Any other questions before we let them set it down? Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Ardmore, can you tell us how much the Osprey are selling for?
Yeah, they look to be in the high threes and low fours.
And what's a mortgage on the current, did you do that math quickly?
It looked to be between 23 and 2,600 a month.
Thank you.
Well, that's not counting homeowner insurance.
Yeah, but that's on today's interest rates, right? So I agree. And I really like that the Ospreys are already all 100% ownership. So if you combine the two together, we're meeting a goal of 50%-ish, right? But I think it's reasonable to ask for some to be occupied by homeowners and for sale. And it changes. So rent, I don't see that rent goes down really. And sometimes you get upside down. It just flips the other way where rent is more expensive than homeownership. So if people can get in, if interest rates go down and then they can get into a home, then that insulates them from rents going higher because they're locked into a mortgage rate. So I'm not sure that, I mean, while I understand what you're saying, I'm not sure that that's a snippet in time, and I'm not sure that's a full reason to make a decision. Having said that, you got the Osprey that are 100% for sale. And so this balances it out, but.
I also don't know that someone's going to be sticking around for 30 years in a 3-bedroom townhome. I mean, you're looking at several years before you can even get out of being upside down on that mortgage. So, I mean, saving $600 to $700 a month paying rent, I see that as attractive for someone who's at that stage of life.
I also doubt that even though the townhomes across the street are 100% for sale, that they are owner occupied. So we have to remember that there's an investment happening there. And so it, like Matt was saying, it may be better to have 100% rental that's well maintained and a nice asset to the community, a nice welcome gate to the community versus a whole bunch of Airbnbs, which aren't allowed in that zone, but you know,
May happen
might happen anyway.
Especially with a sports park nearby, right? Okay, I'm just trying to think about issues and how to move forward. I feel like for those with concerns about this being moved away from commercial, there's an easy, straightforward vote on that, right? With this particular item, you just recommend denial. For those who are concerned about rentals versus purchasable units, that's a little more fuzzy, right? Because you might like it overall, but you would like to see that change. And so I think this might be a great opportunity to do a straw poll that we can pass on to the city council on that particular issue, right?
Well, I just wanted to say my main concern, actually, even though I had a diatribe before, my main concern is that I hope Walmart actually goes in there, because we've heard over and over from these people who come in here saying we need a grocery store, and then it keeps getting, and I know it's been promised, but we keep getting promises and then they don't come through. So that's why I asked initially about kicking it forward with a continuation, because I'm just like, think we need a better guarantee this time that we're actually going to get a grocery store, because I feel like we owe that to the residents who have been begging for one.
Right. For me, yes, I think the Walmart thing, that's why I asked the applicant about it, is important. For me, I kind of like the idea of just putting that as a condition on our recommendation.
Is that
For
strong
me,
enough? Is it strong?
well, for me,
That's where I'm like,
continuation is
it?
usually we want more information, like we want more research done or something like that. And that's
We
not what
want
this
the
is.
information from, I want the ground broken, you
Yeah.
know? And so that's why I'm like, I don't know if a condition, I don't understand. That's a bill question.
So this has been a big issue with the city council also. They have the same concern. So my anticipation is that the city council is not going to allow construction of townhomes until construction of Walmart has commenced.
That's what I would do if I were on the city council.
Yeah. So I think there are ways to put that in without holding it up. But I'm curious, what do others think?
I think that the city council is going to pursue that line of reason, that questioning with the applicant. And I suspect that's going to lead to a development agreement that has that very clearly spelled out.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on that, though?
I think that's what development agreements exist for. I think we'll get it. We'll get what we agreed or nothing, because it still doesn't make sense financially for anybody to come in, but Walmart seems eager. So let's help make the process work for them.
And I like the idea of getting it further along so that once that does commence, they can start right away, right? And get this going.
I agree.
Before it sits too long and the market changes, right? Like we want that to go. Okay, so how do we feel about doing a straw poll on the ownership issue to kind of separate that issue from the main recommendation?
I think I'm okay with letting the market dictate that. And I think Matt's suggestions were.
Well, and I would add that the city council clearly has a vision of
Yeah.
this
They'll.
aside from
they'll
whatever
ask
else
for
we
what
do. So
they-
if you want to do a straw poll, fine. I think they have a mind for where they want this and that'll come up.
So you're fine just leaving it?
I'm fine just leaving
Me
it.
too.
How about on this side? How do you guys feel?
So leaving it with the city's recommendation that there's a condition of some units being for sale.
No,
Is
leave
that-
it with the city council to decide.
Well,
But
They
that
always-
there's
they
a
always decide
recommendation that
anyway.
they can decide what that is.
the recommendation says that
As currently written, which we don't have
as
to
currently
follow.
written, right, says that there be some units for sale. That the developer guarantees some for sale units. That's what the city has, the staff recommendation is that we recommend approval with those conditions. One of them being that the developer guarantees some for sale units.
Right, and then
So,
they
are you
pass,
saying
they've
we
asked
remove
for
that?
percentages, right?
Well, that's up to the city council, but
No, they ask us to recommend a percentage before. That was in another meeting when we. talked
well,
about
we had a
that.
hard, no, mm-mm,
No, not
And-
necessarily.
no.
We can.
We
So-
talked about coming up with a percentage, but we were unsuccessful.
So I guess
You're
my
remembering
question is,
correctly.
are you saying, shall we include that condition or not? Is that the question?
And what I'm recommending is we pull that out into a straw poll so that it's not muddying the waters. It makes a cleaner vote on the actual recommendation. So instead of having it as a condition, we would just do the straw poll and say, by the way, we did a
Sounds good.
straw poll and this is how many people were concerned about that condition.
So instead of saying concerned about it, do you want to specify what you want us to say we care about?
Yeah. Can you?
No,
put that in
actually,
words?
do you want to do that?
Well, it's actually not a concern for me. So I'm curious, someone who's concerned about the ownership.
But what if in the straw poll you said 0 is not concerned and any other percentage is your recommendation? In terms of how much what percent of for sale you would like to see?
Yeah, it could be. We could do it that way. So we could word the straw poll essentially, what percentage do you think the city council should require?
That
for
feels more like a
sale?
bar graph than a straw poll.
Well, I am a data guy, so that's how we roll. What do you guys think? What's the best way to address that issue?
I think I'm gonna vote no, just because I want it to be commercial like the plan.
So it's a
said in the-
non-issue for you?
yeah. If it were an issue, I would, if we had to, I'd be like, oh, at least 75%. We have like a major problem in the city that we don't have enough owner occupied.
Okay. I mean, in my mind, that's actually another advantage of a straw poll is you can say, I don't like it, but if it does go forward, it should have this, right?
And I would say, I'd like to support the staff recommendation and let the developer and the city determine what they could make work as far as for sale
What
units.
percentage?
Because there is like the developer said, there's going to be a break point. So they may be able to offer some for sale, they may not. I mean, but I think the way the city has worded this, I would support.
I could support that too,
I could
Even
support
though
that
I'll-
3.
even though I'll probably vote against it anyway.
I mean, for me, I guess one reason why I want to pull it out is because I feel like I can support it even if there's not a ownership requirement in there.
Same.
And so adding that recommendation in it makes me feel more constrained, right? Like, I don't know, it's a separate issue for me.
Well, it's ultimately the city council's decision anyway. So
Yeah.
it's their decision to how important they feel that is. So
So are you bringing this up because you would be inclined to not list it as a condition of approval?
Correct. Yep. But I
So-
understand the concern and I respect the concern. So I want to try to find some way to pass that concern on to the city council without making it central to a vote where now it's, yes, I'm voting in support, but actually that condition's not important to me kind of thing, right?
I would
Then-
suggest you just leave it out because the city council understands
And they'll
their
do it
priority
anyway.
on that.
Okay.
And
Are you guys okay with that?
And we've already learned in the last 5 minutes that we're all over the map
Yeah,
on
we
our
are.
vision, at least for this location.
And hopefully that gets reflected in the report as well. Okay, so are we ready for a series of motions on this one?
I would like to just state as part of our discussion that I love the plan. I don't like the plan being as extensive as it is. I still feel that having that street go through it is going to not make it a super great residential area, and I would be way more excited about it if it was a compromise between giving a little more commercial and a little less residential based on the reasons for why it was changed in the first place. So I'm going to preface that as when you see a no vote coming from me, it's not because I hate the plan. It's because I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's what we want.
I agree with that.
I'm happy to put residential there. I'm happy to give some of it back, but I feel like it's a little bit too much. And I think with the street configuration, the way it is in that main intersection going through the middle of the neighborhood, we're going to regret it. And so that's where my no vote will be coming from.
Great.
I just kind of wonder if you're carving out just that little elbow, is that like residential facing services? And then you've got like a mixture of freeway interchange with rest stops and truck stops. And then you've also got the walk-up cafe. And it's like,
Yeah,
what
I think
are
it's
we?
doable, but I'm not sure what it would look like. I just think it's not ideal with the road configuration, and it's not necessary for that section to be the buffer.
Yeah.
There's enough buffer already there.
Just seems like it's a very challenging segregation of uses already with the freeway interchange and residential.
Yeah.
And yeah, I see the challenges there.
So, and I'll admit, I actually like mixed votes because I think it catches their attention. And the city council starts to dig into what are these kinds of concerns and things like that. So, with that, are we ready for some motions?
I will not be making them because it would just make it confusing.
I'll try to make a motion then.
Great, John, thanks.
Help me with the wording. I move that we recommend that item 2, James Chapman requests a general plan amendment for 12.56 acres of land to reclassify from commercial to residential in order to develop a 150-unit townhome development located approximately at 1870 South 500 West, with the conditions as indicated in the staff report.
Well done. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, let's go ahead and start voting on my left.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye, so the motion passes 5-2. Okay, how about item 3?
I'll try again, the same. Planning Commission recommends that item 3, James Chapman requests a zone map amendment from the FC3 Freeway Commercial 3 zone to the LDR Low Density Residential Zone for 12.56 acres of land in order to develop a 150-unit townhome community located at approximately 1870 South 500 West, with the conditions as indicated in the staff report.
Actually, we're striking condition number 2 from the staff report. When we talked about for sale units, we talked about just not having that be a condition and letting the city council figure that out.
So it's up to you. You're making the
You're
motion.
making
You
the
want to
motion,
include it
So
or not?
you're absolutely right. So with recommendation 1, that the Walmart project begins construction prior to the signing of the ordinance for this amendment.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
I would just like added that I would be in support of some for sale units.
Anyone else want to make a similar comment?
My comment is let the city council have at it.
Okay,
Right, which doesn't change my voting. It
Yeah.
just means that I wanted that heard.
yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead with the voting on this one.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye, so this one also passes 5-2. And item 4, John, you're on a roll. You want to keep going?
Okay. Let's see, let's review the staff recommendations for item 4. Guess we agree with all those recommendations, right? Okay.
Actually, could I add a condition? I'll make a motion with a condition.
Why don't you make the motion?
Okay. I move for recommendation of item 4 with the condition that the relocation of the fueling station be considered.
Sorry, Joel.
Were there other conditions to add?
Two things with that. This is not a recommendation on this one. It's a
Oh, this is approval.
approve ordinance. And we also can't condition
That's a
the
different project.
The
alternative
other
site.
project,
Yeah.
even with it being the same property owner?
Same property owner, different application. It's not in the purview of this review.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Okay. Bummer.
Sorry, you weren't here when we reviewed Walmart.
Okay. Yeah.
We just reviewed it not with residential in
before.
mind, so
It
it wasn't, it
makes
was a
sense with-
non-issue
yeah.
then.
Yeah. Okay. In that case, yeah. Motion for approval of the project plan with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
I think, just to be clear, let's go ahead and read in those conditions that are in there.
Here.
I think Lisa's got a copy here for you.
That with the condition that the general plan amendment and zone map amendment are approved by the city council, the applicant resolves all remaining CRC comments prior to building permit application, that a subdivision plat is approved and recorded prior to building permit application. Yeah.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. We'll commence voting.
Can I get rid of the condition and add the strong encouragement to
Yeah, we'll ask if
To
they know it
collaborate on
fully.
that as a,
to put your heads together?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
nay?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. So this one also passes 5-2. Okay, let's go to our last item for the night. Terry Sirac requests ordinance text amendments for Provo City Code 14.34.287 residential mixed-use design standards to amend the applicability of certain standards. And Aaron Ardmore will present this for us.
Yeah, thank you. So Dustin is out on vacation, so I get to cover his items tonight. So you'll see the staff report was written by Dustin. I'll do my best to try to give you an overview of that. So here are the proposed amendments. So these are two different subsections of the residential and mixed use design standards that apply to VLDR, LDR, MDR, HDR, and mixed use zones. So a number of zones are applicable to these standards. So the two that are being proposed to be amended are in front of you. And the amendment is to make an exception of these two standards for projects that are under 10 units. To give you some examples, Dustin, I believe, put these in the staff report as well. He did. So these are examples of buildings that were built before these design standards. Removing those standards or providing an exception to these standards could result in buildings like these. The interesting thing about this proposal is it's very subjective on how you think these design standards or what you think these design standards do to a building. Some people might think these are beautiful. Some people might think the opposite. Anywhere in between, there's a spectrum, right? But we just wanted to give you some examples, local examples along that same street that didn't have these standards. And that's what they chose to do. To be more precise with the applicant's project, the project on the right, the approved 5-unit concept, is what the concept that was approved by you when the rezone was coming through here. The rezone was approved by the city council. But since that vote, the applicant has decided to try to go back to a larger project. To do that, he needs to amend these design standards. The project on the left is what we could end up with if these standards are amended as proposed. I'll just note that the frontage of that kind of between the two windows is a wall that's in the very back of the property. It's kind of on a flat picture. It's hard to see. I just want to point that out. Dustin thought that may be important for people that didn't see it that way. So I think the question on this proposal tonight is really it's kind of a policy decision. You're making a recommendation to the city council, and they're going to have to decide where the value is at. Either the value is in more units, perhaps at the cost of attractive design, or less design standards that could produce more units with a variety of results that could occur. So that's what we have for you. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Aaron. Lisa?
Is it possible to word it in such a way that doesn't remove the possibility of all design standards for certain smaller projects, but has some sort of administrative review with these goals in mind, that we don't want it to look like a giant carport, or, you know, like, is it possible to word it that way so that the standards still apply, but it can have a design review component that the administration can, or that you guys can do?
Yeah, so like with all text amendments that come in front of you, you'll want to recommend approval or denial on what's proposed, but you can make a separate motion to have an alternative amendment that the planning commission votes on, and the city council can see both options, right? And that gives them a little bit more variety of things to think on.
Okay, thanks.
Question.
Yeah.
It seems to me that this would be Provo wide then for these changes, right?
It'd be a citywide impact.
Citywide. And so the pictures are for that street. Is it possible to do something for that street? Because is there a way it can be an exception granted for that street, but not for the entire city?
I was gonna say 2 of the 3 pictures are on that street.
They're right down
the
right,
bottom
same
left,
block.
Yeah, the bottom left is much farther east, still south of campus, but close to 9th East.
So is it, okay, so the 2 that are on the same block, is it possible to allow this condition for that one property only and not make it a citywide?
I suppose
amendment?
a text amendment could be written in such a way. Yes.
And
I'm wondering what design standard it failed. What-
The habitable floor, so the first floor has to have at least 30 feet of habitable space. So residential units, things like that, not parking.
So the
not
garage
stairwells,
is what
not
failed it?
garages.
The garage failed it.
That's part of it. And then the pedestrian entrances,
Could we go back to that
Yep.
photo? Sorry, thank you.
so
The
you'll
photo,
see,
sorry, the photo of the
drawing.
drawing, the rendering. The elevation. It's not an elevation, it's sort of the rendering. So it failed on the garage. And it failed on, what was the second thing?
so the central driveway on the proposed building on the left, the 8 unit, the central driveway isn't currently permitted by code.
Okay.
And that whole first floor against the street, the first 30 feet of that would have to be habitable space. So residential units or lobby space, not parking.
So right now we would say you have to have it to one side or the other.
Correct, like the one on the picture on the other side. Yeah.
That has the kind of carport looking thing, right?
Yeah, which
Okay.
leads to parking in the back.
So it didn't
where-
have anything to do with it being a 3-story.
No, the height is
Okay.
not dependent on that.
so where is the pedestrian entrance to this building?
On the 8 unit,
The larger one?
I don't see it. I don't know. This is the only image that I have as well.
Okay, I'll ask the applicant.
Yeah, on the right one, you can see the 2 doors there.
Okay, Joel?
Do you have an idea on super rough estimate about how many properties this would impact?
So the majority of, I'd say everything that's zoned in these zones that this design
Okay.
standard is applicable to
Okay.
is either built out or currently being built.
Okay.
So we didn't pre-zone VLDR, LDR, MDR, HDR, our mixed use zone anywhere in the city.
Okay. Because it's infill development, which I imagine there's not a ton of lots that are even eligible for that style of development, right? It's kind of challenging.
There's, in the general plan, there's a lot of areas that recommend any of those zones.
Okay.
But yeah, it is somewhat limited.
Matthew?
So just to clarify, if we approve this amendment, we could get the what's neighboring in essence, right? Those other three images, we could get that again is what is possible.
Right.
From a social standpoint, I'm totally in favor of why the code is written the way it is. In this specific location, though, if all the other ones look like this, that's a little different than if it's in a neighborhood with a bunch of single family homes and they have the ability to put in 5 units or 8 units, not the 15 or, depending on lot size, right?
Mhm.
Am I thinking about that the right way?
Correct. But yes, this would be a citywide impact. So
we open the
The way
door.
the proposal is in front of you, it would affect everyone.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Aaron.
I didn't see a staff
Oh, sorry.
recommendation.
Correct.
It's up to us. Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Thanks.
Is the applicant here tonight? Please come forward. You'll have 15 minutes to present your item.
Thank you for taking the time away from your family to meet with me. I appreciate it. This one. What I would like to do is
Sorry, you need to state your name.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
start over. Fine. My name is Terry Cyrack, and so I'm the owner, general contractor for this project. And so we currently own the land that's next to these properties that are there. I just want to point out that the two properties, the one at the top and the one to the right is called Foxwood. That has 16 units. And the one at the top is Woodland Heights, and that is 20 projects. So the way I had written this text amendment would be to, it would not apply to these. Personally, I'm sorry, I don't like these. Anyway, the new design code that has been written, the design standards, these projects would not be allowed. And the way that I had written the text amendment is only for 10 units and below. These are all 20 units and 16 units. So these buildings could not be built. Currently, the way that the design standards have mentioned, I'm trying to modify, not change the code, but I'm trying to modify only 2 items out of the 72 design items that are in the code section. I would like to have to get 8 units instead of the 5 units that have been approved. Right now, I would like to have 2 stories over parking. The buildings that are next to me are all 3 stories over parking. The 5 stories that have been approved would only be a single story over parking. And basically what I'm trying to do is eliminate one code item in there that said that I have to have a habitable unit on the first floor. The way that my design is done on the project is it's parking is at the ground level, and then the other then we'd build 2 units on top of it. Let me just go to the other. So currently, if you look, you asked about the entry into the complex, the 2-story one, or the one that is to my left, that door has a little awning and a walkway, and then you can go ahead and enter into that door up into the residence. We also have stairs internal, 2 different sets of stairs that would allow you to enter into the units up above. It looks like you didn't see all the drawings. We have more. I have them back there. I was hoping that Dustin would put this into this presentation. I first submitted, and one of you mentioned that, well, is there a way that we could change this maybe just for my project? I did submit a ProZone application and paid the fees, and then I was recommended by staff that I should get a text code amendment instead of doing the pro zone. I currently have a pro zone in the queue, but it's being put on hold for now. A little bit about this project. It's 1 block away from the new medical center. I met with a couple of physicians today that they're looking at my other apartment complex for their young ladies and to move into. Because right now, currently, the way things are happening with Dr. Ott, they're planning to open fall 2027 to have the medical school open. And I think there's a great need for complexes to be within a block of BYU. My career, I've built hospitals and linear accelerators, MRIs, and so I'm familiar with the programs and the students and the interns and everything like that. With this being so close to University Avenue, to the new medical center and also to Intermountain Healthcare, I think this is an ideal spot for infill for student housing for medical. And so what I'm asking to do is to to get more units into the property, and just that one text amendment saying that I had to have a unit on the first floor. I get that. I think with all the design criteria that you would have, I meet all those requirements except for the one that I have to have a unit on the first floor. There's another amendment in there that I'm asking to change, and it's requiring parking to be onto the right or to the left. But the way it's written, it's for subterranean parking. I don't have subterranean parking. I have surface parking. And so I think that that was rejected. My original project was rejected because of that, but it's not correct. I am not having subterranean parking in this place. Ken Harris Architect has designed this, and if you take a look at some of my other projects, we keep it well and maintained, and I can answer some questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Yeah, John?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So I think from the staff report that we have, I don't know if you have that in front of you. The first item was that the code 14.34.287 item 5 requires driveway placement to be toward the side property line for all developments. And so this would be a code change to have it only apply for development over 10 units. So is that what you're talking about? That you mentioned that that's not actually correct?
Well, they're referring those buildings. These buildings, the top photo, and which is College Place, Woodland Heights, and then the bottom one, which is Foxwood, they're all over 10 units. My units aren't going to look like that. Well, and they wouldn't look like that today with your design criteria, because the way I had written it, anything over 10 units, you have to comply with all these requirements. So I'm not sure it's quite fair to represent my buildings are going to look like these. These buildings could not be built with the design criteria that we have written.
Understood that. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. The second item was that, could you go back to the rendering drawings? Just flip it back one the other way. So to go with the approved 5-unit concept to 8 units, could you not just add a third floor? Like you're doing in your proposal, and then you would get the extra unit in front, so would that actually enhance it?
No, because then it drives the parking ratio.
Okay.
And so what is happening is you're putting a unit on the first floor, and that's taking 5 or 6 stalls to be able to put a unit there. So again, what drives this project is parking. And so the way I have it on this 2-story, they require 14 stalls and I have 15. I can only because the units on the first floor, I can't meet the parking ratio, so it makes no sense to put a second floor because I guess I can make it a clubhouse. You know, but it
Okay.
doesn't work.
Hey, Joel.
Maybe there's a question for the applicant, or maybe it's a question for staff. What's the process like for getting a parking reduction for a project like this? For getting a parking reduction for a project like this, what are your avenues for that?
Lisa, do you want to answer that?
Parking
Do you want to answer that question,
reduction,
Lisa?
I'm meeting the standards.
Well, so I'm wondering if, I mean, this is a block from campus, a block from the medical center, that you're saying this, your target demographic to fill this. I don't need a car if I live a block from everything, right?
Well,
BYU
that's
students
what you
disagree.
think.
I lived in
but
Provo
I'm
for
gonna-
8 years without a car.
I know we're weird. Okay.
I'll tell you,
We're people
medical-
who don't have excessive cars, but my experience has been that housing requires parking, whether they're using it or not. So these people may be jumping on public transportation or walking to school or walking to work, but they've got a car parked in their driveway or in their garage. So
Yeah, I was like,
the
you're gonna have
requirements to
take
get
that
a
up with the
parking
neighbors.
reduction from me for a housing is very steep.
Yeah.
And I own another apartment complex next to this. And we have 70 beds and we only have a couple of empty stalls. So the kids, even though we're so close to BYU, they're still bringing mom and dad's old car. So I'm just trying to meet the parking requirements. It's just that one requirement, no, you have to have a unit on the first floor. And I get why you're doing that because let's go back. The unit on the top, not only do they have parking underneath, they have a ramp that goes up, which you need a four-wheel drive to get up. And so if you say, hey, look, I want a unit on the first floor, it's going to eliminate that. It's going to eliminate that look, and you're not having two layers of parking. And I think that's what the design standard was trying to meet is, look, let's not have a parking garage and then another parking garage, and then we'll start putting units on.
My problem is that this one on the bottom left, even though it's not in your neighborhood, looks like it's more of the scale of what you're building and it's still not attractive. And I know that your renderings are attractive, but if we allow you to have exceptions, then somebody by right would be allowed to build something like that.
I wanted to
No.
add to that though. I think this might be an issue with having garage doors. His
So-
rendering has a garage.
No, it
door.
doesn't. That's a wall behind it.
Yeah,
That's,
Oh,
but during this
thank
part,
you.
let's keep this to
again,
questions.
you
We'll have discussion
cannot
later.
build that project with your design requirements. There's 75 design requirements of the city code design standards. You can't build that. Even if they submitted that and they take my text amendment, you can't still build it, not per this text amendment. You have to have so many square foot of windows. You can't have a flat roof. You have to have a pitch. You have to have a landscape area. You can't put a 5-yard dumpster in front of your place. Everything is wrong about that building.
I have a question for you. On the 8 unit or the 5 unit, how much building frontage do you have? Like how wide is the building in both of those renderings?
I'm sorry, I can't answer.
I didn't see any.
I have a whole
numbers.
set of drawings and I didn't know if they were going to be submitted to this. They have all been, the frontage has all been approved. It's just that one.
I'm just wondering if you were to move the parking to the side on the 8 unit one, if you would have 30 feet of frontage combined with those 2 side pieces. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, I fill up the whole area. I really do. The whole lot. It's just a small, 0.2.
Aaron, do you know
lot.
what I'm asking? You're checking it? Okay.
But there's no living space on that first floor.
No.
And that's the issue. That's what he's trying to get.
I think
changed.
Aaron said it had to be habitable, so it could be an office or rec space or something. It didn't actually have to be a unit at an apartment.
Right,
But
I
he's
think
using all of that space for the parking.
Yeah,
there's
but
not enough
whether it's a
room.
rec unit or a spa or apartment, it's because it's going to take away from parking, and parking generates how many units I can have there. Now, I'm being asked to put a 1-story 1-story over parking. Right next door is a 3-story, and across the street's a 3-story, and I'm gonna have this little, little place
Okay,
right there.
Mr. Ardmore just told me that the facade frontage is 64
Okay.
feet. So I'm looking at this and wondering if there's perhaps 15 feet on one side where the awning is with the entrance and 15 feet on the other side that would be classified as frontage where the garage could go off to the side instead of be in the middle.
It has to be in the middle of enough spots.
We
Oh,
take
okay.
all the parking underneath that whole area from lot line to lot line. We take that parking and then we.
So it's just a fake wall with nothing behind it. It's just hiding part of
Yeah,
the garage.
exactly.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the window. Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go ahead and move to the public comment portion. As with the previous items, you can make one comment. If we have questions, we'll ask them at the end. Do we have any neighborhood chairs here? Okay, so we'll open it to the general public. Would anyone like to comment on this item tonight? Okay, not seeing any, we'll go ahead and close public comments and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Go ahead, Matt, and then Ann.
So I've got a serious problem, not with this location, because it sounds like maybe there's some things going on that what he's proposing makes sense, but as a rule for the city or a change to the city, these are not very good. It's up on the screen in my mind. And the other version of this that we've seen is on these long, narrow residential lots that became town or not condos, rentable or probably rentable space, is that they've turned their back on the public street. And so we've socially created an outcast, which for his specific might be okay, but generally I'm just not comfortable with this making this change. The reason the habitable space, it's not the driveway, and I totally understand how parking drives all of it. It drives every residential project we've ever seen. It's what's driving how many units they fit. It's the social problem that it causes, and having a habitable unit connects with the street, even if it's just 1 out of the 8 or 20, but it makes something different where somebody's walking out the front, somebody's parking on the street, they're not driving in and abandoning. And so I'm in favor of the code as it's written. I might be in favor of a different proposal from this applicant on their site if it's really surrounded by all of this, but I'm not comfortable doing this across the city.
Other comments, Ann? Did you have something? Sorry, I thought your hand was up.
I'm not familiar enough with the design code, but I feel like some of this would have just been solved with some garage doors. But anyway, I know I'm saying this, but I'm like, they're just caverns with 2 legs. And I feel like as much as I enjoyed his presentation, when I look at the rendering and it's dark there and I thought it was a garage door, if I had light coming through it, it will look like these other buildings with a better roof line, albeit, but I'm just saying, it's kind of in the same vein. So my question was for Bill. Can we do a one-off approval and just say, well, this section of the neighborhood looks like this, so we're just gonna like make that the design standard? Or should we like raise our standards?
So you can't tonight. You can vote how you want on this proposal. You could also recommend a couple different things. You can recommend to council an alternative proposal. You could recommend to staff to study and come up with some proposals that come back in front of you. But for tonight, the main function is just to recommend on the proposed amendments.
Can I add on to that? Can you explain to us why you recommended that he do a text amendment versus the pro zone that he originally had applied for?
Yeah, we are telling everybody to not do a pro zone. Pro zone is going away in our Title 14 rewrite. Plenty of reasons behind that, but anybody that asks about a pro zone, we're saying no, we wouldn't support that.
So what would have been the difference? Like the pro zone's going away, but what would have
He
made
would
a
have
difference for him?
written a zone that's very specific to just this site to be able to build what he wants on this site. We have 38 or 39 of those in the city right now.
And Is the city planning, since that's going away, to have an alternative for people to be able to do just a site?
That's what, so the pro zones have been really used as infill. So that's why Development Services wrote the VLDR, LDR, MDR, HDR, CR mixed use zones. So a variety of kind of a spectrum of densities and uses that cover the majority of what those pro zones were trying to achieve. So that's our solution for that.
Except those are citywide versus just one property?
Yes.
So is there anything for just one property that will be?
Each of
available
those
going
pro zones
forward?
applies to one property.
Okay, so, oh wait, but the pro zone's going away, but each of the new zones, the VR.
You
is
could
this-
apply
could
those
apply
to
to
a
those.
single property. Yeah.
Instead of citywide. So we can say that we would like to see this come back as a property specific.
But if it came back
Change.
as an LDR zone or MDR zone, those design standards Sharon's been referring to kick in and apply. And it's
So-
those design standards that the gentleman's having a trouble
Right.
with.
And we
So there
can't
is no
ask-
equivalent to a pro zone in the new code.
No, there's no write your own zone option.
So, but that change has not been made. So pro zones are actually still active in the code today.
They're still active. We just wouldn't recommend approval on them. So we let everybody know that up front.
Are there any kind of zones or standards for infill development that are separate from standard zone language?
So those have been written into those zones that I mentioned, VLDR, LDR, MDR, HDR.
Okay.
Specifically, VLDR and LDR are most likely the infill products. MDR and above are bigger projects.
When we wrote those zones, the intent was to get rid of people going for pro zones. So when we wrote them, we looked through all 36, I think at the time, pro zones and created LDR, MDR, HDR as an amalgamation of those pro zones that we have gotten over the last 15 years. Because of pro zones, we have like 55 or 60 residential zones in this city, which is crazy to try to administer. It sounds
like
Frankenstein's monster.
Pro zones were essentially spot zoning for a parcel.
Yes.
Okay. And so these new standards are an attempt to say these are the design standards for all infill projects.
Yes.
They would fall into one of these.
Because a big reason why the city council went to pro zones in the first place.
Okay.
Was because they thought the architecture wasn't good enough. Let's make a developer come in and ask for a site specific zone so we can get very specific on what the architectural requirements ought to be before you'll get our vote.
What is the current zone?
The current
this
zone
falls in?
is the campus residential zone. So the zone change has been approved by the city council.
Okay.
Now, while I agree very much with the comments that Mr. Wheelwright made, I would also point out, though, in the defense of the applicant, it is very rare for us to get a multifamily building that's 10 units or less. I can't remember one prior to this.
Yeah, usually it's a townhome project on that scale. It's not a stacked unit.
Right. It's very unusual. So while this ordinance amendment would open the door to other things, it's not opening the door very wide because we get so few of that scale.
I also was impressed with the list of like the number of windows and the facade appearance and the roof line. And there's a lot of other safeguards in there. So if you combine the improbability of this small of a development with those other design safeguards, maybe that gives us a little bit more insurance, because I'm tending to lean where you lean, where if it opens a can of worms, I don't want to open it.
I guess what I'm wondering though is if, let's say, there's a neighborhood where an individual lot, older house, starting to fall apart a little bit. They sell it to somebody who says, ooh, I could squeeze this on there. We could end up with someone not as cognizant and not as conscientious as our current applicant, who's now going to end up with a version of this at 10 units. And that's what I'm really uncomfortable with. And even with the 8, yes, the architecture is good, but it does not solve any social, except in that location it might, which is what's a little, where that's the only place I'm torn.
For me, one big difference is if we can go back to his elevations here. I keep looking at these 3 pictures and this one saying, okay, why do I like this one better than the others, right? And there's a couple of things. One, he put windows down there, right, by the garage, which is nice. But the biggest thing for me, and I think this addresses one thing you talked about, is that he has the door to the building at the front. So he's not turning his back on the street, right? The main pedestrian entrance is also on the front. And I look at some of these others and I'm like, well, if they had done that, done some windows and had put the entrance to their building on the front, maybe they wouldn't be as bad either.
And not their dumpster, but that raises the question, where does the dumpster go in this scenario?
That is a good question. I'm sure he has to figure that out.
I have one, is there any other way for us to do this without changing the design? Is
It
there any other
appears-
way to let him build this
it
building
appears
without
so.
changing the design
Standards, you mean?
guidelines?
A pro zone.
Which he's not recommending.
Jonathan, even with everything you just said, any other developer could do it and we would be very disappointed.
Yeah,
If we,
that's what I'm trying to think, because, we have the option of recommending an alternative. And I'm wondering, is there a way we could tweak the design standards in a way where we feel like we're safe, that we won't get bad stuff in the future? But I think we're pretty much in agreement that this is not a bad design here that would allow something like this to move forward. That's what I'm trying to seek out in my mind. Is there a way to offer a text saying, maybe these edits are too broad and make too much exempt, but is there a way we can make a smaller change that would allow this to go forward?
I don't feel comfortable with the proposed language. Even if it's an 8-unit, 5-unit, I don't care how many units, that street access is a miserable pedestrian experience. When you're having to look over your shoulder for cars, when you're walking down University from 700 to 800 North and you have all these massive apartment buildings, people flying in and out of the driveway and they're sitting halfway across the sidewalk to pull out. I think that's exactly what these design standards are trying to avoid. I think it's bad for the residents that are living here, and I think it's bad for the residents that are walking on the sidewalk.
I mean, I guess in my mind, how does that make a difference if you shove it to the side and put an apartment on the ground floor?
Because
How
we
does that improve
require
that?
side street access, not off of the main arterial.
No,
But-
it's front still. It's just to the side of the building like it is over here. That's all. It's just not in the middle.
I think the design standards said it has to be side street access.
This is the middle of the block, right?
No, it's just the side of the property.
Side of the property, just not centered.
They just don't want it to be split in half by a
Yeah.
garage.
I see.
Because that argument I get,
Yeah,
right? Like, let's create nice pedestrian walkways where they're not crossing garages every second. I mean, I've been in big cities too, and it's even worse there, right? Because you have this gate that flies up and someone comes
Yep.
right out. Some cities even have little flashing lights to warn you it's such a bad experience.
Well, and
but-
all those apartments in the other sheet, you see how steep they are, and so everyone's flying out of them to get enough
Yeah.
speed to get up there. Turning on their 4-wheel drive to get out during the snow and flying out into that sidewalk. And I just think it's a very
Yeah,
a
not
very
ideal for
unattractive
sure.
design.
The other part of it is that pedestrian scale. And even though there's windows there, which is an improvement to a wall, there's still not eyes on the street. It's still not a street focused. Welcome to our neighborhood where people live here instead of cars live here.
Yeah.
Could we ask Aaron that question, why the design standards ask for the entrance to be on the side rather than in the middle?
It's just best practices. It's everything that's kind of been said. It's the pedestrian scale. It's the interaction with the street, interaction with your neighbors. It's just architecture has advanced to a certain degree throughout the years. The planning, education that we receive, everything that has been talked about walkability,
Like, how does it
units
change
on the
the
ground with
function?
doors and windows.
Well, no, how does it change the function of the garage door? Because we're talking about form and function now. So how does it change the function of the door to move it to the side? Like you were saying pedestrian, like why is it safer to move it to the side rather than?
I don't know if it's safer. I
Okay.
wouldn't say.
So it might just be
necessarily
a
is safer.
form issue, right?
It's
Might
it's
just be
aesthetics,
aesthetically
it's-
better.
It's environment. It's
But it also
Yes.
requires a living unit on the main floor, on the main level,
well, habitable space. It doesn't have to be a living unit,
but
right? But
something functional.
Yeah.
And that's the
Not
difference.
necessarily. I mean, you could, I don't know if
But
that's
but
true.
it's different than just all parking, right?
part of what I
That's a
think,
different thing,
it's a
right?
combination
There
of
were two
things
of them.
too. You have a lot frontage area, then you have a drive that's usually at least 20 feet. And then you have this unit. And if you don't have the unit, then the driveway takes over everything. And so it's the math adding up across the street frontage that this code helps us avoid. And I think we would all look at these two and say the 5 units better. My problem is that maybe in that location, it's not better, but everywhere else, I'm in favor of the 5 unit, eyes on the street, social on the street, slowing down parking because there are not so many people flying out. All of those things are better in the 5 unit version. So I have no motivation. 3 units has not moved the needle on our housing crisis. So the motivation isn't there, even though I understand in this location, there might be something else to talk about. But in the code, I don't think there is.
Except if it allows us to do a good infill, you know, so if this allows him to make this work and create a good infill, then.
But
it does look
isn't
good
that
there.
5 a
It
good
does-
infill?
I don't think it's as good as an 8, right?
Well.
In this
same
area,
what-
right? In this.
Right, that's
But
the
are
problem.
three, are
That's the
three
problem.
apartments worth changing our design code for
It's
is the
60%.
question today,
Well,
right?
that's where I think we all agree, and we just don't want to do this citywide. So what are our options? What other options could we ask you to reevaluate to come up with something that gives us the assurance that we don't have to do this citywide? That we
Maybe-
could limit it to certain areas, that we could make sure that every project fits in, like this fits in with what's around it, right?
Is a habitable space like you could put a phone booth in there? You know what
It's
I'm
gotta be
saying?
a
Like,
minimum
how much
size,
square
right?
footage are we talking about?
Just
30
the first 30 feet of depth
Okay.
off the property line.
As, sorry.
The first 30
The
feet.
first 30 feet of the interior of the building has to be devoted to a living space.
Yeah,
Of some.
habitable space. So to answer that question, there's so many different ways you can write this. So I don't think I'd feel comfortable trying to come up with language right now at this time. I think the best thing to do is to vote on what's proposed. If there's amendments that you would like to see made with the proposed language, have that as an alternative to send to the council. I think that's probably the best way forward.
Yeah, I think I am strongly in favor of infill development. And I think a lot of our sort of campus core is going to be infill development at this point. It's all built out. But I think I would love to see maybe different development standards for infill where there's like an amenity point bucket. If you're providing these and these and these, you can get density bonuses, parking reduction bonuses, I'll say it. If you offer a bike share or something, or a lock-up bike room in your apartment, and students are able to say, okay, I'm going to take the $300 cheaper month rent because they are able to use that space for apartments instead of for parking. I think that starts changing some of the calculus for who chooses to move into that space. I would love to see infill projects that are able to say, we're a little bit different, but we're only 5 units. We're not shattering the market here, but we are providing options. I would love to see maybe a different rewrite of the infill design standards. I don't really feel comfortable with the current proposed language.
I mean, I definitely agree with the infill thing. As I read things, one of the hard things that cities have as they try to get more dense is the fact that because of our design standards, you end up having to buy a whole bunch of lots together, right? And having some sort of good design standards for infill, smaller buildings would help us boost that density without going crazy on the density, but also making it so developers can do it on their one lot instead of having to try to join a bunch together. And I think that would be a good thing.
But in the right places,
In the right places, for sure.
not citywide.
Yeah, well, and I think, part of that's zoning, right? This doesn't pass into an R1 zone anyway.
It's in campus residential, like it's a very different space. Yeah. Could there be like a design review committee where you're looking at infill projects more closely for all of these factors you want to see?
To the previous point, yes, these are citywide design standards, and I'm not opposed at all to what you were just suggesting, Joel, but because these require a zone change, if a plan comes in that is not agreeable, then don't grant the zone change.
Another issue I have with this is that one of our goals for this campus mixed use area is to have hugely dense projects. We want our density to be in these areas. Am I correct that that's something we've talked about? So to have our design standards make it difficult to build bigger on small parcels, it does thwart the goals of infill and high density where we want it. But I'm with you. I think we could maybe recommend denial and then have them approach it from infill design standards that may or may not already exist. And I don't know how you would decide to apply those.
So a related thought perhaps, how extensive is campus residential zone? Is it just around the campus? Is it possible we can make these changes just for the CR zone and nothing else?
The majority of that zone exists between the south edge of campus and 7th North and University Avenue and 9th East. There are other pockets like this property, the property that's right adjacent to the south of this property. And then there's one more up north of the stadium where Temp Towers was built.
So I wonder if it would it be possible to have our recommendation be that this change be applied to only the CR zone?
It could be, yeah.
I think it would be, though that's a good start, I don't think we want to stop there because I think anywhere north of Center Street that has because the city is working towards getting your high density where the high density is most useful. And so if we can encourage the infill, quality infill development to be in those areas where it's most likely to be useful.
But couldn't you just rezone the CR then?
That's what I wondered, yeah.
Yeah, couldn't that be dealt with separately?
I see what you're saying,
Just let this, does that solve our problem now without having boxed ourselves in? There's still ability to deal with that.
To
in the future.
rezone it, yeah.
And we get that rezone extra leeway if it's a bad looking project kind of thing.
The control.
I'm saying maybe it's the design standards we need to go over. You know, like maybe the problem is the 30 feet and we should have it be smaller to allow for another parking spot. Do you know what I'm saying here? Like I hate to just do something on the fly.
Just imagine though, there's a lot of little houses in that area around campus where most of these would be likely to occur. And they just simply don't have enough frontage for 30 feet of space plus entrance to a parking lot. So most of them wouldn't even work with the 5-unit concept. So I agree that there's so many of those along 700 North that are similar to these pictures in the staff report, where you've got an area of high density where somebody decided, let's just make it as street accessible as possible. We're just going to drive right in here. The garbage man could come right in here. Or who cares where the people enter? They can go through the parking garage. It's fine. You know, and so it's just not a pedestrian friendly. It's not pretty. It's not, it's a subterranean and above ground parking lot with houses on either side. So.
But I'm not sure, sorry.
I like the standards. I think they serve a purpose and I'm grateful for them and I don't want to pull the rug out from underneath them. So.
And I would add, if we got a lot of those 5-unit to replace some of the single family, that would be great in my mind. That satisfies something that we need and accomplishes it. I feel a little bad for this applicant because it sounds like maybe the property was purchased thinking that a pro zone was going to solve this for him. But most developers, when you buy a piece of land, you know exactly what it's zoned and you know you took the risk on whether it would get rezoned or not. And so if you thought you could get 8 out of a certain property, but you can only get 5, but that's what you paid for. You're trying to get more. I'm not saying this applicant falls into that, but I'm saying that's the model. So whatever is the general code is what they'll buy and sell the land at. And it'll be okay. It'll all work its way out over time. And if somebody has to buy 2 lots so that they could get 8 units, then buy 2 lots. That's still more than 2 single-family homes that are now currently overcrowded and underparked unless they're on the lawn. Like that's some of the stuff we see. So I don't think abandoning the code solves those other things.
I like this idea that we're talking about of just applying this to the CR zone, but that sounds kind of messy. And we're trying to have a clean zoning code. So staff, from your perspective, if we were to suggest something like that to the municipal council to discuss, is that counterproductive to our cleaning up our zoning ordinance to say, except in the CR zone, this doesn't apply?
I think if applying it just to the CR zone helps you feel more comfortable with it, that'd be fine. What I'd like to do once this discussion is completed, I'd like to spend 2 or 3 work sessions with you guys going through the design standards and some specific properties and how they would fit, and to see if there's better ways to do things. It's been years since we wrote these. Joel may be right. It's time to look at them and see if there's better ways to do it. But I'd like to spend a few work sessions with you going through all of this so we all understand it better.
Yeah, one thing I'm thinking about is Matthew mentioned 5, units if you took 2 lots and made it that. The problem is all of those in like the Joaquin neighborhood are already duplexes. Because it's near the university, they can have more than 3 people in them. How many can they have in there? What's the rule?
6 per unit.
6 per unit. And so you've got top bottom, you've got 12 people in one house, you've got 12 people in the other house. 5 units with 2 or 3 each is no increase in density at that point. But if we can push it to more like 8 or 10 units on that same 2 properties, now we've got an incentive to actually do that and clean it up and make it nicer than an overpacked house, essentially, is what it becomes without parking at all. So I agree. I think there's some things to look at and see if we can't update them.
But what you just said, you don't think this is the code that does that for us?
No,
Or do you?
I'm with you guys in that
Okay.
when I read this report, I had major concerns about how broad it was and how it just basically gave a blanket exception to everything. But then, especially this rendering, the rendering in the report's actually not as good as this one. But I looked at it and I thought, that's not something that really makes me think, wow, this is going to cause a problem in the neighborhood. It actually looks pretty nice. And so, so it's that kind of debate, right? How can we allow good projects while making sure that they're good projects? And that's where I'm stuck on how to do it. So, yeah.
Would there be any advantage to recommending to continue this rather than deny it for the applicant?
No, I think it's advantageous to the applicant that you approve it or deny it.
Okay, so continuation doesn't help. It just puts them on hold.
Right.
Okay.
I think we want more in these locations. We want 8 units instead of 5. And so I think I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Yeah. Just a quick note on that. We've talked about it's only 3 units, but for me, if we can find a way to make sure that we don't open up a can of worms, that's a 60% increase in density for me. And so, yeah, it's 3 units here, but if you can spread that over several lots around the university, that's a significant boost, right? And so, anyway, okay.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion that we recommend a positive recommendation to the city council for Terry Cyrek requesting an ordinance text amendment to Provo City Code 14.34.287 to amend the applicability of 14.34.287 to, let's see, 2A, is that how you say that?
Good enough for me.
Accepting townhomes. So just as it's written, adding for building complexes over 10 units. And then 14.34.2875I, adding with the addition of for building complexes over 10 units to apply only to the CR zone.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Can we do that since it's not what they're asking as part of our motion? Or do we have to make
I would say since you're narrowing it down from what was requested, it would be allowed.
Okay.
If you were broadening
So
it,
it's
I
still
would say no.
considered a recommendation of approval, even though we're changing the language?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, you're supposed to vote up or down on code amendments, but if.
I thought there was an alternative where we could suggest an alternative.
Go ahead, Aaron.
So I think what might be appropriate, asking the applicant to come back up to see if he would like to revise his proposal to apply only to campus residential. Everything else remains the same. And then forward that recommendation on. If not, you can provide it as an alternative to the council. Would that make sense?
Okay.
So if we provided an alternative, it would be, we recommend denial unless this was the parameters.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and invite the
Yeah.
applicant forward.
Do we need to vote on a motion that's on the floor or take the motion off the floor?
I think,
I think we might need to act on the motion.
Let's take it off, right? Take it off and put it back on.
I think that's the cleanest. So, yeah. Okay,
Are
so
you going to
you're
withdraw your
rescinding?
motion?
I'll withdraw the motion.
Great, okay. So did you understand that conversation there?
A little bit. I do want to just bring up one thing, is that when I looked at my other project, I did it as, you know, we had written the code and we did a pro zone and it seemed to work just beautiful and we hadn't had any problem. When I look at the Provo website, they give still an alternative. Still, I can use pro zone just because someone on the second floor says, no, we don't want to do that anymore. It's still in your laws and bylaws or whatever you call it, zoning, that is an option. And that's why I did submit it as that. If we did it as a pro zone, we could take care of this and it would only be just for my project only. So there's nobody has said there's nothing that I see on your website that says it's not allowed. So that's one thought. Then back to, if you want to make that adjustment for just the CR zone, if that would work, I'm okay with that as long as if I get the project approved. The other thing I need you to know is that if you drive over to this project, I'm surrounded by apartment complexes on all sides. There is not a single family home within 2 or 3 blocks of where we are. Well, at least within a block. And so we are kind of on our own little island, and it's beautiful because it's going to provide housing for the BYU Medical Center. And my other complex is right next door and we have management. You're welcome to go and take a look at it. We take pride in ownership and you can see what we do. So
great. Thank you. On the pro zone, my understanding would be, yes, at your prerogative, you could push that forward. Staff would likely not recommend approval, but you can move forward
I've
with it if
already
you'd like.
submitted that a month or 2 ago. And then it was put on hold because it's not, they wanted me to do a text amendment. So I paid like $1,200 for the pro zone. And then after meeting with, you know, your staff, they says, no, we'd rather you do a text amendment. So I've already done it. It's on hold.
Yeah. So, okay. That's something to work out with them because you can move it forward if you'd like. Okay. So now he has offered that he's okay with the CR limitation on that. So I think we can go ahead and use that version for our recommendation.
Okay, so do we need to make the motion again, or can I just say I'd like to reactivate that first motion? Would you like me to say that again?
Let's just go ahead and say it
Okay.
again. For the record, yeah.
All right, so I make a motion that we send a positive recommendation to the city council for Terry Cyrek requesting an ordinance text amendment to Provo City Code 14.34.287 for the following portion of 4A2, capital A, adding the phrase for building complexes over 10 units, and 14.34.287 5A1 or I for building complexes, adding for building complexes over 10 units, but only to apply to the CR zone.
Great. Do we have a second for that?
Seconded.
Great. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
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 And I'm going to vote nay on that one. So the motion passes 4-3 on that item. Okay, so thank you, everyone. That is our last item. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Can I add a comment to my
Yes,
vote?
please.
I'd just like to request, I don't know if request is even, can we ask that we do work with staff to work session this amendment and maybe look at data design standards?
Great.
It's a good idea.
Good idea.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.